that is what led me to the hospital because my mind got so clouded with negative thoughts that I no longer felt safe in my environment.
What is up, everyone? I'm your host, Alannized, and this is Noche de Pendejadas, your favorite podcast turned talk show en donde yo traigo a tus influencers favoritos para platicar y posiblemente sacarle sus trapitos al sol. Hoy les tengo un episodio, amigas, que yo, igual que ustedes, sé que están súper emocionados de tener aquí el día de hoy. So without further ado, please help me welcome tonight's guest, Lucas Reyes!
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
¿Cómo estás, friend?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what's so funny, you guys? I know you guys are sick and tired of always hearing me say this has been a long time in the making, but this truly has been a long time in the making. I feel like me and you have been playing tag.
We have been for a while now.
For like what, more than a year?
It has been more than a year.
Literally more than a year, you guys. Like, we'll have conversations through DMs like, let's make it happen, este mes. And for whatever the fucking reason is, no se hace, pero estoy contento que el día de hoy sí se nos va a hacer, amigas. And I'm so excited to have you here. This actually ended up happening, you guys, at a Halloween party.
Literally.
Yes. Do you remember how I asked you all randomly?
Yes.
I was like, do you want a shot?
No, but I really appreciate you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I know it's been very long overdue, but I'm nervous, but I'm very excited.
Los dos estamos súper nerviosos, amigas. Ayer estuvimos platicando y los temas and just everything we're going to talk about today are temas que sí en verdad son súper sensibles, pero yo sé que allá en casita, ustedes después de ver este episodio, you guys are going to be able to really truly get to know you a little bit more. And I feel like that's, the main focus of my podcast. I really do like, bringing on my guests to tell their story para que la gente en verdad sepa quién son. So with that being said, amigas, antes de que empecemos con el chisme, yo te voy a dar a ti el micrófono para que nos digas un poquito más de quién eres y qué haces.
My name is Lucas Reyes. I am 22 years old. I am from Lake County, Illinois, or we could say Chicago, Illinois. But I'm a content creator, I'm a mental health advocate, and I am a talent manager.
Hoy vamos a poder conocer a Lucas in a very deeper level. Antes de que empecemos, cuéntanos cómo te ha ido aquí en Los Ángeles. I know you've been here for like a week already.
Yeah,
y no te vas hasta la semana que vienes. What have you done? What has been like the highlight of your week and stay here in LA?
It's been quite interesting. I feel like I've been all over the place. Every time I come to LA, I feel like it's very inevitable. I always end up just freestyling live. I had a couple events to go to. I think I saw you there.
Halloween.
Yes, the Halloween event. I had Mary's birthday party and had other things to do here as well. And I feel like it's been a good time. I brought some of my friends out with me. I'm just here. I'm traveling. I love it here. I feel like LA is just a second home.
Y las fiestas que no terminan, amigas, because literal este fin de semana otra vez enfiestados vamos a andar. Literally. Well, there's 2 parties out in LA this weekend. You guys, are you leaving right after the parties or what?
I think so. I think I'm going to leave right after.
Ya necesitas descansar.
Yeah, after a while, I feel like I get very homesick.
Andar en tanto en party, amigas, como que cansa. There comes a moment where you're like, you know what? I just want to lock myself in my house y no salir y no tener que platicar con nadie porque social battery really does get drained.
No, definitely. I feel like after the first few days that I was here, it was just party after party after party being out. I was just I need to recharge.
Yes.
I need to go home and relax. I need to decompress. I need a little spa day, just time for myself. But definitely, it does get exhausting. It does get really draining. But I feel like being around the right people is what makes it very memorable.
Memorable. I feel like for sure, you guys, even though yo también me canso de tantas fiestas, lo pedo y lo divertido nadie me lo va a quitar, ¿verdad? So with that being said, amigas, ya vamos a empezar con el chisme. Ya vamos a empezar con las preguntas para poder conocerte un poquito más. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with the pregunta que a mí me encanta empezar with, and that is about your childhood. Cuéntanos un poquito de tu infancia. What was it like for Lucas growing up?
Lucas growing up, I feel like I was a really big travieso, very big troublemaker. I was always like putting my nose into things and always trying to like push people's buttons. I also feel like that has a lot to do with like my childhood and things that I went through. But I was always like, I feel like I was always the outcast growing up. Balancing life between the United States and Guatemala for me also really like shaped who I am. Doing stuff and always like in the mix, always trying to like create chaos and drama, you know? And I feel like that had a lot to do with like things that I went through or like things that
how you were raised.
like how I was raised,
Yeah,
you know?
cuéntanos un poquito más de eso. Me estabas contando anoche, and you mentioned it now, that at an early age of 5, you were constantly going back and forth from Guatemala and the USA. How was that like for you growing up? Do you feel like you were able to like grasp what was really going on? Because I feel like that's a really huge cultural change, going from the USA and then going to Guatemala at such an early age. Were you conscious of what was like going on at that time?
Yes, obviously like I was like very, very young. So it was very hard for me to like really comprehend.
Yeah.
But I do think there was a lot of difference in dynamic and culture. And I feel like it was a really big eye opener for me, you know, the difference between Guatemala and the United States. I feel like it was honestly like I was living like two lives. I was like really lucky to like have both like best of both worlds, you know? Literally.
Best of both
literally,
worlds.
like Hannah
¿Por qué se
Montana said.
iban mucho? Like, why would your parents go back and forth between Guatemala and the USA? Do you know?
So I guess they just really wanted me to like experience like what it was like for them to grow up and where they came from. So, and plus I also had a lot of family over there. So I just feel like they wanted me to like grasp that like
I just be
that
closer to your
perspective.
roots.
And just be closer, exactly, like be closer to my roots and stuff. And so I would go there from time to time. I would spend a lot of my time in Guatemala, like as a child, and I would spend time with my cousins and my tias and a lot of family. You know, over there in Guatemala, like literally you have so much family. Like I feel like till this day, I'm still like meeting so much family that I
You're like,
never
damn,
even
la
met. Like,
familia nunca acaba en
no,
Guatemala.
literally.
What was that like? Obviamente nos cuentas that when you would go to Guatemala, you liked it because, you know, you had a lot of family, aka these family members turned into your friends that you would play with. Did you enjoy the times where you would go to Guatemala, or did you kind of were like, oh my God, I want to go back to the States, like no me gusta aquí? What was that like for you?
I would say like being in Guatemala, I always felt like indifferent because like I guess being from the United States, I felt like I was like more Americanized than the usual Guatemalteco, you know?
Okay.
Even myself now, like I feel like nobody can tell that I'm Guatemalan, right? I don't look like it. I feel like I don't fit that standard, you know? But that's also because, you know, my dad is half like my dad is like German and like Italian descent. So obviously, like, you know, I'm half Guatemalteco, and I feel like over there, I had like language barriers where I was going back from English to Spanish, and I just kept trying to like fit into both places because obviously, like the US, you know, I had family over here, and like nobody in the United States like spoke Spanish. None of my family here speaks Spanish, but over there, everybody spoke Spanish. So it was just like, it was very different in culture, very different in language. And I just feel like the whole dynamic and everything was like so different, but also gave me a lot of perspective. And it opened my eyes so much. Just like being over there. I haven't been there in such a long time, but I really feel like it shaped who I am today.
I feel like it does, especially seeing all of that at a young age. You know, you go to Guatemala and you see how different life is. The way of life in Guatemala, I'm sure, is so much different than it is over here. And you've seen that at such a young age, como que te abrió los ojos and you're like, oh shit, like I really am in a place of privilege living in the States. When did you grasp onto the idea of like, oh shit, like en verdad que sí, I'm really privileged to like be able to live in the States as well? Did you ever have a moment like that?
I did. Seeing the way that like my family lived over there, it really opened my eyes because they didn't really have much, you know? And even like the little details I paid attention, like the way that, you know, they would go out and get their food, the way they would wash their clothes, just the way that they lived their daily, exactly, the way that they lived their daily lives was so like indifferent from the way that I lived my life in the United States or the way that my family was living over here. So I definitely did feel like very privileged going back to the United States because I realized that we were living a luxury life compared to them, you know? Our life was like very luxurious and we're living the life that they wish that they could live. And I always felt really bad because I would be there for months at a time and then I would go back and then I just felt bad because I'm like, they don't have that opportunity to be able to come back to the United States
like that's
and live
their
the
life.
Yeah, that's their life. And it's like, I feel like I was just getting a glimpse of their life. And I was just like temporarily like living their life.
You almost kind of knew growing up that you're like, okay, yeah, like maybe the lifestyle isn't as nice as it is in America, but I know that I'll be here for like a month or two y me regreso.
Exactly.
Like, you know that this is not like your reality.
Exactly.
Would you guys go more to like visit, or would you guys more go to like actually live out there like for time to time?
We would go more for like travel, and like we would go around and explore like different like
the ciudades y todo eso.
Exactly, like different cities, do different excursions. We would go out to different playas and different amusement parks over there just to get like a feel of like what it's like to like live over there.
So iban de vacaciones ustedes, para disfrutar.
Exactly. But it was the best of both worlds. We would go for vacaciones, of course, but then we would also go and visit family. And a lot of my family lives like hours apart. So we would drive and we would stay there for like a week, and then we would leave, and then we would just, every day was like a movie. You know, every day was a freestyle. Whatever we wanted to do, we would make the plan the day of, and then we would go and we would do it.
In Guatemala te pasó algo that really did change your life and your perspective. Platícanos un poquito más de eso, cómo pasó, and you know, how did that change your perspective on life at such a young age?
Well, being in Guatemala, obviously, you know, I had a lot of good memories. I spent a lot of good time, like I had a lot of good times with my family over there, but I also went through something that I don't wish on my worst enemy. The last time I actually been to Guatemala, I don't really talk about this, but the last time I was there, I have not been back since, was when I was 7 years old. I remember I was staying with my grandparents at the time, and my parents weren't there. My mom wasn't there. No one was there.
They were over here?
Yeah, they were over here in the United States. But not to say that they just left me behind and didn't care about me or anything. I just think they just wanted me to like experience their culture.
Yeah.
I was staying with my grandparents, and you know, as a little kid over there, like you're working at a very young age. Like they put you to work. They have you, you know, walking the streets, doing this and that, you know, hopping from mercado to mercado, you know, picking stuff up. They had sent me to go pick up some tortillas and to go deliver them to my tia's house, who was not too far down the street from my grandparents' house. And I remember, I vividly remember like walking the dirt roads. I remember seeing the little pueblo. I remember seeing just we had like these little tuk-tuks, these little like cars. I don't know. And then the little stray dogs, everyone, you know? But I remember walking by myself. I went to go pick up these handmade tortillas. I went to my tia's house. I went to go drop them off. And as I was doing that, some older man came up to me. He looked at me. And as soon as I looked at him, like, I just knew something was wrong. It's just the way that he looked at me, like the way we made that eye contact. I just knew that I was like in danger. And as soon as I looked at him, he came up to me and he grabbed me. They didn't speak to me, didn't say anything, just grabbed me. He grabbed me by the wrist really, really hard. And all I remember is him grabbing me, pulling me in, and just laughing. He was just laughing in my face. And obviously, with the language barriers, I didn't really know how to express myself. I didn't really know what to say. I feel like I was trying to defend myself, but I didn't know how to defend myself. And he pulled me to his house that was like 2 houses down from where my tia lived. This is like one of my hardest stories to talk about. And it's something that not even my family understands. I feel like I struggle with talking about it because for years and years and years, like my own family didn't believe me. But when I was 7 years old, I was abducted by this older man in Guatemala. It was just like one of those experiences that you don't fully understand.
You were 7 too at the time. Obviamente un niño, no sabía lo que estaba pasando.
Mm-hmm. And at that time, like it marks you forever. I just remember being in shock. I remember being scared. I remember being fearful. I remember wondering, like, where's my mom at? Where's my dad? Where are my parents? You know, in that moment. It's just one of those gut instincts that you have, like, I'm in danger. I'm grateful I had the strength that I did as a kid because I remember he brought me into this house and he basically told me that I was never going to see sunlight again. I remember being placed in a chair. I was in front of a fire pit. All I seen was fire. I was in a chair. He tied me up in the chair. And all I could think about was, I'm never going to see my family again. I'm never going to see my mom again. I'm never going to know. I'm never going to be able to experience life. I'm never going to be able to, like, grow up.
Yeah.
I just remember I had so much fear, I had so much anxiety. I just felt so scared. I felt so fearful. He was saying all types of things to me. And obviously, like at that time, I was still, like I said, I was still trying to balance from English to Spanish. I barely understood what he was telling me, but all I knew it was not good things.
Yeah.
He was just telling me things that I understood that I wasn't in a safe environment.
Yeah.
You know, I understood that I needed to somehow find an escape and get out and leave because I knew the situation I was in, it was not a good situation. But I also didn't know how I would explain this to my family
Yeah.
because I was always seen as like a troublemaker. I was always seen as like an attention seeker. Like I said, I was like the travieso in my family. And I feel like no one ever believed me from like a very young age. So in that moment, I was just like, what is my family gonna think? What is my mom gonna think? I was just so scared. I was so fearful for my life. I remember sitting there. I was in front of the fire pit. He was telling me all these evil things. And I remember the moment that he left the room, I took everything in my power I took initiative. I was like, I need to find a way out. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I just need to get out of here. I have a family. I'm here alone. I don't have anybody here. I need to find an exit.
Yeah.
And so I remember being in the chair. I waddled myself, till I dropped to the floor. And when I dropped to the floor, there was like this little sewer, like this hole, like this little sewer thingy on the floor. Like all the floor was like cement.
Yeah.
There's this little sewer thing, and it had like this little metal thingy. Like I don't know how to explain it, but there was like this little metal thingy poking up
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
outside of it. And I remember cutting the rope. Like I maneuvered myself like on the chair, and I remember just like rubbing myself against the floor, trying to cut it, trying to get myself out of this situation. I just feel like everything happened so fast. And like I said, I'm 7 years old. So these are like vivid memories that I'm having. I'm remembering very like vivid things about the situation because in that moment, I felt like it was like life or death
Yeah.
situation.
Like
I
you really
had to
didn't think you
escape.
were gonna make it
I
out.
didn't really think I was gonna make it out. I didn't know what I needed to do. I just knew I needed to do something. I didn't really have a plan. I couldn't even think. I'm a child.
Yeah.
I don't really have that much thoughts. I'm in a whole different country.
How long were you in his house for before you started getting to the moment of like trying to escape?
I was there for about a day. I remember when I escaped, I didn't necessarily have a plan, but the moment I seen that advantage that I had to get up and to go, I took it. I was like, this is my time to leave. This is my time to get out of here, to get out of this situation. Because if I don't get out of this situation, I don't know if I will ever see light again. Once I got out of there, once I felt free, I ran out of there. I remember running to my tia's house. I was banging on the door. I was very hysterical. I was crying. I was screaming. I was telling them, ayúdame, help, help, help. He's coming after me. I don't know what to do. And it took about a few minutes before someone actually opened the door. So the guy was still behind me, still trying to grab me, still trying to pull me away as the people around were basically telling him to relax, to stop. And as my tia opened the door, they opened the door and the guy kind of like walked away. He brushed off a little bit. He was just sitting on the side. He was acting like he was like a bystander.
Yeah.
And I remember my tia seen him. She was looking out her door and she was telling people like, oh, lo siento, I'm so sorry. Like he's a troublemaker. I'm sorry for the scene that he's making. They yelled at me and they told me, why did you leave? Why did you run away? If you would have done what you were supposed to do, this wouldn't have happened. So for me, it was just a very like unsettling situation. I felt very unseen. I felt very unheard. And I feel like that's why it's something that's really hard for me to talk about because I feel like till this day, like my own family doesn't really believe me and no one ever really believes me when I talk about this because they always say that I put myself in these situations because I want attention. I remember my tia, she was telling the guy like, oh, he just wants you to feel bad. He just wants us to feel bad for him. She was apologizing to him, basically saying sorry to everyone for the scene that I was causing, for the scene that I was making. And I was like, wow, how could you?
In that
I
moment,
was
did you tell him what actually happened, or were you just kind of like, oh,
It's
I'm
like
too
physically
scared?
they could
Yeah.
see it though. That's the thing I didn't understand. It's like I was crying, I was hysterical. I had marks on my body. And it's like nobody even cared to even call home
Yeah.
to say this is what Lucas is going through. This is what's happening. And it was a very scary situation because even though I was telling them and I was very vocal about it, I just felt like they didn't. I feel like what it was is they didn't want to take responsibility
Yeah.
for what had happened to me because my mom and obviously my parents had left me in their care. So I feel like for them, it was not something that they were comfortable
Yeah.
telling.
Or they didn't want to make it a big deal
They-
because iba a llegar tu mamá y tu papá and they were going to be like, what the hell happened?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I later found out that the guy like who did that, he was a pastor for a church.
Oh, shit. So,
Yeah.
obviamente, you know, that happens. You kind of were left very in a situation where you almost felt like no one believed what happened. Did you ever have a moment when your parents came and get you that you told them what was going on? And what was their reaction cuando les dijiste lo que te había pasado?
The first time that I brought it up, I remember like explaining to my mom that like I had got kidnapped and a guy had grabbed me by the wrist. And when I had brought it up to her, I think she also was brainwashed by my family as well. And she was led to believe a completely different story. So for a while, she never really, really believed me. I feel like now, eventually, that I've gotten older, I've been able to build that relationship with her and build that trust and foundation to where she actually understands and
Yeah.
gets like, oh, you really did go through this. But for a while as a kid, I feel like I was so overseen, so overlooked that they even brainwashed my own mother, my own parents, my family to the point where they were like, no, nothing really happened to you. He didn't mean any harm. And that's where I feel like I started to like kind of not believe in myself.
Yeah.
I started to believe that, you know, what I had went through was not
Real.
real.
Yeah.
You know, I thought like for a while, like this is a dream. Like there's no way that I went through this. But it's like time and time again, I would have this same nightmare over and over about the same situation. And every time I would express myself or mention it, it's like, well, I don't recall that happening, or they don't recall that happening, or it didn't happen the way that you believe that it happened. And so for me, I just felt very silent. I felt like I know what I went through. I was in the situation. It was physically, it was evident
Yeah.
that what I went through was a serious situation. Especially when I knocked on, I know for a fact when I was banging on that door, there was no way possible that anyone could even think that like
It was made up.
that there
Yeah.
could be no way that anyone could think that it was like made up.
Yeah.
Because you could literally see, like, if I hear someone hysterically knocking at the door, banging, crying with physical marks on their body.
At your age too, you're like, what the hell is a 7-year-old, whether he's a troublemaker or not? Like, he has no fucking brain. Well, you at the time probably had no brain to be like, let me make up this story where someone's gonna like abduct me. No, like it's what was happening to you.
Exactly.
How was that like? Obviamente nos cuentas that for a lot of years, you know, your mom and your family didn't believe you. Did that affect you in the way you kind of communicated anything that was going on to like anyone around you? Did that make you more like a closed off person growing up?
For a while, like, I didn't feel safe. I feel like I had to build like a sense of security, you know? I had trust issues for a very long time. I didn't, especially with like, you know, your own family not
Yeah.
believing you. You feel like, damn, you're unseen. You feel like you're invisible, you know? And I feel like it really did take a while, and it's still something that I'm like progressively learning, something that I'm still trying to learn and gain. Not being believed in or not being seen or like feeling invalidated, it really does make you very closed off. It makes you feel like no matter what you say, you're not going to be heard and nobody's going to care or no one's going to believe in what you say. So I feel like for a while, no matter what thing that I went through, I would always close myself off and I would never want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I knew that no matter what I said, it was always going to be seen as something else and nobody was ever going to believe me. It really did build a lot of like underlying issues within myself and my self-esteem. I felt like no one trusted me. I felt like I was an outcast like my whole life. I was a child, and growing up, I feel like those same patterns led throughout my life. And even talking about that situation, it wasn't until like my teen years where people started to believe me, or even now, like now that I'm in my 20s, like there's still family that question that
That even
story. They
happened,
question
yeah.
that it even happened. And I'm like, well, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm telling you what happened. And this is my story. And I'm going to tell my story the way that I know it, and the way that I remember it, and in the way that I have these recurring dreams.
Yeah.
Because I get vivid nightmares all
Till
the
this
time.
day?
Till this day, I get vivid nightmares about the things that I went through. They're very persistent. The story stays the same all the time. I remember the same exact things. Every time I'm vocal about it, it's like, no, you didn't go through that. No, you didn't go through that. And for a while as a kid, it was hard for me to talk about it. It was so hard for me to go into details and to say everything that I went through because, you know, from the moment that I escaped, I was silenced.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, how do you even react? How do you even vocalize yourself? I felt just very like I felt very silenced. Like I felt like the lights were on, but nobody was home.
That was the last time you ever went to Guatemala. Was that because you didn't want to go back, or was it more because, you know, the family didn't want you going back because they had seen that you had done this whole ass scene?
I didn't want to go back because I was fearful. I was scared for my life. I didn't want that to ever happen to me again. I was traumatized, but I was also, I felt very hurt. I felt very betrayed that my family there didn't even believe me. They didn't even create any type of conversation like to my family. They didn't even care to even tell them what happened. I didn't learn until later on, but obviously with, like I said, with the language barriers, with me knowing Spanish and English, obviously I wasn't as articulate in Spanish. Even though Spanish was my first language, I wasn't as articulate in Spanish than they were. So I figured that me explaining myself to them, that they were gonna take that initiative and call home and explain in their words. And I realized like that never happened. I noticed the support that I got when I got back home, and I just felt like I was just not seen. I feel like my story like wasn't being heard. And I just felt so scared. I felt so fearful. I felt like, I don't know. And I just didn't feel like living anymore. I felt like, wow, like no one sees me, no one believes me. I went through this, and I went through such like a life-threatening situation, and no one believes me. So it's like, why do I want to continue on my life constantly having to reiterate the same story over and over and over until somebody finally understands me, so someone finally believes that what I went through was real. I don't have video, I don't have evidence, I don't have photos, but I have the emotional scars. I have the physical scars. I have everything tied, like everything in my brain.
And I feel like that's the thing that sucks when, you know, family doesn't believe you, especially with, you know, something so big like this. I hope that you continue healing from this wound, y yo sé que lo vas a hacer. Quiero platicar un poquito de la relación con tus papás. What was that like growing up? Did you feel like growing up you were more of like a daddy's boy or a mommy's boy?
I was definitely closer to my mom. We definitely had that strong bond. We had a very strong relationship. I remember like doing puzzles with her. I was so tied to her hip. Literally, she was literally my ride or die. Anywhere she went, we were there. I was her shadow. I was pegado literally to her, like chicle.
Her chicle, yeah,
literally
yeah.
her chicle. Growing up, like I seen my parents fight a lot. I see them go through like their ups and downs and stuff. And I was always in my mom's defense.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what, I was always be yelling at my dad. I'm like, Dad, stop, leave my mom alone. Like, no, just stop, you know? I was always trying to like create peace between them. So yeah, I was definitely really, really tight to my mom. We had like a very strong like relationship like growing up. And I would say like throughout the years, like as I gotten older, sadly, like it did kind of like we did kind of get more distant. I feel like we were like in two different points of our lives. Like My mom was just trying so hard to understand me and who I was because, like I said, I was like a really bad kid. I was a troublemaker. I was always up to no good. I was always looking for something. There was always something that I was like getting into, getting expelled from school, getting suspended, you know. I had all these stories and everything. And I think my mom was just trying to figure out like, damn, what do I do with this rebellious kid?
Do you feel like a lot of that stemmed because you would see all the problems at home with your parents? That's why you would kind of act out to kind of be like, pónganme atención a mí as a child?
No, definitely. I feel like, you know, a lot of my actions as a kid, I feel like I was very rebellious because I did want that attention from my parents. I did want them to see me, I did want to feel validated because, you know, like I said, the most traumatic experiences or things that I've been through, I felt unseen. I felt unvalidated. I felt unheard. So I do feel like I manifested myself into this rebellious kid, always looking for trouble, always trying to do things and push people's buttons.
Me estabas contando anoche that at 5 years old se separaron tus papás. Cuéntanos un poquito de eso. ¿Te acuerdas cómo te dijeron la noticia? What was your initial reaction to them like telling you that they were going to separate? And at what age did you fully process and understand what really was going on with your parents' separation?
When I found out my parents were separating, I feel like I was too young to like fully understand it. But like I sensed things weren't the same. You know, like at 5, you're aware when your world feels different, you know? You're aware when
mommy and daddy
you're aware when mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore, when they're falling out of love and they no longer can be together. But I feel like as a kid, I was just so confused and all I ever wanted was for them to work. And I was always trying to create peace in their relationship and always trying to like piece them together. But I realized like growing up that things were much more complex than I could even understand as a child. And I realized that, you know, some relationships just don't work out. And I later had to understand that, you know, I had to learn it the hard way. And I feel like I eventually learned that after I seen like my dad get into a new marriage, you know, he had this new relationship. And I was like, oh, wow. So, you know, mom and dad are no longer together anymore. He's moving out. I'm, you know, living by myself now with my siblings and my mom. And I realized that like my dad is no longer in the picture. He's living a whole new life with somebody else. And that's when I realized like, oh, okay, well, you know, not everything is Romeo and Juliet, you know.
Did they ever have a moment where they sat you down and they were like, mira, mijo, tu mamá y tu papá ya no van a estar juntos?
Not really. I feel like it was very vague. There was a moment where basically like they divorced and they were like, well, we're going to co-parent. He's going to move here. We're going to stay here. You either go here, here, here. My mom was fought for her custody. Well, she ended up having like full custody over me. And then she was co-parenting with my dad. Things just happened very like in the moment. From one day to the next, I just remember my dad moving out. And then I remember going to visit him and he had a new girl around. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a whole different life. You know, I had to try to understand my dad in a whole different perspective.
How fast did your dad remarry?
It was quick. It was like a year later.
Oh, shit.
He married. So that's not even dating.
So ya andaba de novio.
Yeah, exactly. So they were already together like, I feel like months after. Like I would say like a few months, literally as soon as they broke up. I think they had already knew each other from work.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So they knew each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
Uno nunca sabe. Exactly. El trabajo, uno nunca sabe.
Exactly. So they had already known each other from work. So they got together like really, really fast. They were dating and the next thing you know, the next year they were married. And my dad's like, oh, like this is your stepmom. Like meet new mom. And I'm like, what? Like, you know? Like, I'm a little kid. I'm like 5, 6 years old. I'm like, what? Now I have to adapt to like a new parent, to a new lifestyle. And I definitely did see my dad in a different way. I always wondered, I'm like, what can I do to just get them back together? Like, and I always wondered, I'm like, what happened? Like, because I'm not going to lie. Like, yeah, I did see my parents. Like, I did see my parents like fight all the time. I did see, you know, my dad was like a very aggressive person. Just based off of that, I realized like, you know what? They just weren't meant for each other. Seeing my mom and dad fight all the time, I knew that like that just wasn't healthy.
But it was almost normal to you. So to you, you're like, what do you mean you guys can't get back?
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it was normal. So I'm like, okay, so you guys can't just work through this. You guys just can't get back together, you know? And it's like, no, like, your dad found somebody else. He's already seen someone else. It's never gonna work out.
Do you feel like the relationship with your dad after he remarried changed in the way of like you no longer wanted to be with him, or you almost felt him a little distance from you because he was too busy, trying to create this new life with his new wife?
I feel like it changed a little bit, only for the fact that I didn't fully understand what remarriage meant. I didn't really understand the new dynamics that it would bring. I feel like things did change when, my dad got with his new wife, because I feel like it was a whole new dynamic for me. I had to get to know new people. I had to create like a whole different family. And I just felt like, well, why couldn't you just fight for our family? I never really blame my mom, because I seen the struggles that they went through. I seen the fights. I seen that my mom did try her hardest. She was very resilient in the relationship. So I knew she put her all into it. I knew my mom was fighting, even though she wasn't trying to show it. She was trying her hardest to hide it. I could see my mom was a fighter. She was fighting for the relationship. Like, my dad was just not changing. Like, my dad was not changing. They were constantly fighting. They were constantly arguing. They're constantly having disagreements. And I just feel like my mom did what she could to hold down our family, to keep it together. And eventually it's like you get tired of it. Like, you opt out of the relationship and you no longer have the energy to proceed.
And I feel like obviously how the timeline is laid out, it almost felt like, your dad was already trying to leave that relationship to go pursue another.
Exactly.
So your mom was kind of like, well, there's not really anything I can do to keep him here porque él ya había hecho su decisión de irse. Quiero platicar un poquito about, your new family dynamics. Do you feel like when you first were presented to this idea of like, look, this is your new stepmom, were you all in for it? Or did you kind of struggle adapting to like, oh, now you have to respect her and potentially treat her like your second mom?
It was definitely like something that I had to get used to. In the beginning, it was very hard because I was so used to seeing my mom and dad together. I was not used to seeing my dad in love with somebody else. And then also having a kid with them.
Yeah.
Because they had a kid very early on as well. I was trying so hard to understand that sometimes relationships just don't work out, and that eventually, like, my dad is gonna have to move on, and I'm gonna have to accept whoever he ends up with. But for a while, I would say it took me about a year to finally adapt to my new stepmom. It took me a while to really open up and to accept her as my stepmom, and to give her that title and to give her that respect. And I know for a while we had a very rocky relationship where it was like off and on. Every time I would go visit my dad, she would like send me home and tell my dad like, no, he needs to go home. But it was because I was always act out. But I feel like because I was just so like, I was so angry, like, you're not my mom. She would like tell me things to do, and I just never wanted to listen to her because I'm like, who are you? You're not my mom. How are you going to tell me what to do? I was very, very rebellious, like, towards her. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with the fact that, you're a whole new figure in my life. I needed a chance to get to know you, to open up to you, to feel your vibe. And eventually, after a while, I started to accept her. I started to respect her a little bit more and more. And I feel like our relationship then eventually progressed. The relationship with my dad eventually, started to progress more and more. And it got to the point where we would then do things as a family, where I would go out with my dad and his new wife, my stepmom, and we would go and we would do things together. And, while she was pregnant with my brother, we were always doing stuff together. And I feel like eventually I just ended up like getting used to it.
You accepted it for what it was.
You kind of. But I definitely did go through that stage where I was very uncomfortable, where this was something new. And it was something I had to learn to get used to. But I feel like I definitely was very closed off at first. But after a while, I was like, okay, relax. Like,
Like, there's nothing I can do.
Right, there's nothing I can do. They're clearly in love. I thought it was a phase. I thought like, oh, okay, they're not going to last. Eventually, my dad is going to end up back with my mom, and things are just going to be like the movies and go back to normal.
Did you be like, you know what, I'm going to scare the bitch away. Like, I'm going to make her hate me so she can leave my dad.
No, literally. Like, I would do crazy stuff. Like, I was such a bad kid. Like, I was the type of kid, kid that would like have the plancha running, and then I would put it on the floor so that it can like burn the,
The
carpet,
carpet,
start a
yeah,
fire.
yeah.
Like,
You're like, te me vas hoy, stepmom.
y-
That's crazy. Did your
yes.
mom remarry or no?
My mom never, no.
Oh,
My
how
mom
was
never
that? You
remarried.
know, obviamente, you know, you see your dad remake his life. What was it like back at home? You know, what was it like growing up with a single mom? And what struggles did you see your mom go through that you feel like really did shape you?
I feel like who I am is I give a lot of credit to my mom, because my mom is a very resilient woman. She's a very hardworking Latina woman. She literally came from nothing and created something for herself. And I realized the moment she left that relationship, she was striving. She was healthy. She was growing. She was doing like so many big things for herself. I feel like after she opted out of that relationship, it was like it was her sign to like prosper, to go out and to do better and to, you know, build a life, like build a life for herself, you know? So growing up, I definitely seen a lot of resilience in my mom, and I give her a lot of credit because it was me and my older brother at the time. And like I said, I was a bad kid. I was a troublemaker, and she had to put up with a lot. There was a lot that I put my mom through, but she never gave up. One thing about my mom, she's so hardworking. She never gave up. She would never talk about the problems that she had with my dad. She would stay very strong, even on the days where, you know, she probably wasn't okay. My mom never made it noticeable. She was thriving. To me as a kid, my mom was thriving without him. And I was wondering, I'm like, why? Like, why are you okay right now? You know, why are you okay without him? He's not in the house. And I just felt like that's how you knew they just were not meant to be.
Yeah, they
you know?
weren't compatible.
That's how you knew exactly that
Like
they were
your
not
mom
compatible.
needed to leave that relationship to thrive.
Exactly.
You know, she wasn't going to be able to have that growth with your dad in the picture. Do you feel
Exactly.
like, you know, growing up with separated parents, do you feel like that affected you in the long run? Like, did it make you someone that kind of viewed relationships and just family differently now that you're like an adult?
It definitely made me question love. I feel like it made me feel like, is it even possible to like fall in love and to love? Is love even real? Like, is it even possible to love somebody? Because what I saw and what was deemed as love was, I guess,
Didn't work out.
was a fairy
Yeah.
tale, you know? Like in my eyes, I was like, oh wow, like this didn't work out. Like, is love even like a real thing? Definitely did change my perspective a lot, but I was a very smart kid. I was very adaptable. I feel like I learned very quickly. I learned very easily. And I was just very like, how do I say it? Like I was just very like insightful. I was very like, I was
Like
a ve-
menso no eras.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I was like very insightful. I learned very quickly. You told me one thing, I would understand. I would be like, okay, mom, okay, dad. Even though I was a bad kid, I was still very smart. And I feel like that's why I would act out all the time, because I had like a strategy.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing.
Like you're like, I have something to back it up.
Exactly.
Like my brain.
Exactly.
Literally.
Exactly.
Did it affect you in the way you made friends? You know, like, did you ever feel like, oh shit, like my friends have their mom and dad together? Was school different in that sense for you?
Definitely. I feel like I always felt like the outcast. I always seen my friends go home to their parents, talk about their mom and dad, talk about trips that they were going on and things that they were doing. I'm not gonna lie, I did build up a little bit of jealousy. I felt very indifferent. I felt like I was abnormal. I was like, why does everybody get to go home to their mom and dad and I can't? You know, why does everyone get to do fun activities with their mom and dad and I can't? Why do I have to see my dad on the weekends? I remember as a kid, like friends would invite me somewhere and I'm like, oh, I can't go because that's my weekend with my dad. Or it's like, oh, I can't go because it's a weekend with my mom. Like, I got to figure out where I'm going to be and who I'm going to be with. And it's like, for them, it was something that they weren't used to because they had their parents. They had their family. For me, it was just something that I never really had growing up that I wish that I had, you know? I wish that I was able to experience that type of family dynamic that other kids experience, you know, in my classes.
You had weekends with your mom, you had weekends with your dad, and essentially you were almost having two homes growing up. Did you like that growing up?
No, adapting between two different homes, obviously, it was really hard for me. I didn't know really which home to call my home because I had a room in each home. But I definitely felt more at home with my mom. I felt like that was just the place to be. I feel like anytime that I was like at my dad's house, I always felt like something was off, you know? But that's because my dad was the one in the new relationship and my
Yeah.
mom was the one by herself. So I knew my mom needed me. And I knew when I was home, me and my mom, we were like inseparable. Like I was so tied to her hip. We would do everything and literally everything together. So I just felt more at home there. And I feel like my dad was more focused on his new relationship and doing things with his new wife and now his newborn that he has, you know, my brother. And so, you know, while my dad was building this new life, to me, it was just like, there was just like this confusion
Yeah.
of like, well, why does my mom have to be by herself? Like while I'm here,
You
while
almost
my
like resented your dad.
exactly.
Yeah.
For a while, I feel like I did, but eventually I learned to like overcome that and I learned to forgive him. I feel like it definitely took a lot of self-reflection. It took a lot of coping, and eventually I learned to just, I don't know, I learned to accept that there is going to be two different homes, that, you know, one home may be brighter than the other. Eventually, I just had to understand that, you know, this is where my dad lives, this is where my mom lives, and this is the life that I'm going to have to live for however long that they continue to be together, you know, my dad and his wife. And I have to get to accept him and his new family. Like I had no choice but to just adapt to it. So, but it definitely did feel very like uneasy. I felt very like uncomfortable at first because I'm like, why do I have to constantly switch homes? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like this. Why can't like dad just come over here? One thing that I admire so much about my mom too is the fact that like she is so strong. She eventually was able to come to like she was able to come to good terms for the sake of her kids, for the
Yeah.
sake of us. She was able to come to good terms with my dad and his new wife. So I remember she would invite them over to our house. And that's what gave me, I felt like I had like a sense of community.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh my God, like it's best of both worlds. I have my dad here, I have my mom here, and now I have my new mom, and they're all here in the same house. And at that time too, I had my little brother, and he was like a newborn. And even like my grandma from my mom's side would babysit him, would
Oh,
babysit
yeah,
my
yeah.
little
Le
brother
agarraron
that my dad.
cariño. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So they started to like build a relationship, and I really loved that. You know, I loved that they were able to put all the things that they had aside. They were able to come together for their kids, and I feel like that's what really like changed my perspective
Yeah.
a lot. It felt like a Disney movie. I felt like, wow, like my mom, my dad, like I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I got very hopeful at one point.
Yeah.
Or I was like, maybe they could get back together, you know? Very wishful thinking, but
Yeah.
obviously like it never happened. But for a while when I saw that they were getting along and that they were talking and that, you know, my dad would come to the house and visit and that they were getting along and she was getting along with his new wife, I eventually realized like, oh, okay, like, you know,
It's two separate lives
it's
now,
just
yeah.
two separate lives now, and mom and dad are just friends now. My dad has a new wife, and my mom is just they're friends.
I love that because I feel like sometimes it's hard, especially as adults. I feel like, you know, when people break up and go their separate ways and when there's kids involved, I feel like a lot of people first put their feelings first instead of really focusing on what matters, which is the kids. And I feel like the fact that your mom and your dad were able to be complete adults and be like, you know what? This isn't about us anymore. It's about the kids. And for the kids to feel like they have both parents in their life, it's really rare to see, but it really is beautiful. Cuéntanos un poquito más de la relación con tu hermano. El que quedó con tu mamá. Nos cuentas that you had an older, you know, brother at home with your mom. What was that like? Do you feel like you started seeing him more as like the paternal figure in your life? Did he put the pants on and be like, you know what, mom? Dad left. I'm here in charge. Yo te voy a ayudar con lo que quieras. And what was that relationship with you and your brother?
So the relationship with me and my brother, it was very rocky. I feel like me and my brother were just so different, like growing up. You know, we went through similar experiences, but we were also very different people. You know, I feel like I went through so many things in my life or so many different hardships that made me very indifferent from him, and like I feel like through it all, me and my brother, like we always had like this love and hate relationship, you know?
Peleaban mucho?
We always fought all the time, no matter what. We can never be like in a room together. More so because I would always try to start things.
Yeah.
It's like I would like be poking the bear, you know? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try to see what I could do to him so that, you know, I can get that reaction out of him, you know? But it's also like, see, like we were talking about earlier, I feel like that's me trying to find like that sense of like validation of trying to be heard and trying to be seen, because I feel like for a while, like, you know, my dad wasn't there. So who else could I bother? You know, the only other man in the house was my older brother. And there would be times where I would try to like, you know, pick on him or try to do things, or times where obviously like, you know, there would be times where I would just want to spend time with him or do stuff with him, but he would always like push me away and be like,
or
get out of
he's
my
too
room.
grown, yeah.
So I feel like for a while, like my brother, he was like way too, like he was just too grown. He was just too cool. He was in his own space. He was a gamer. He was just in his room gaming all the time. He would watch TV and movies and all this. And me as a kid, I never been that type of kid. Even till this day, I don't watch movies. I don't watch TV. I don't have a TV in my room.
Shut up.
I'm so serious. I don't.
You're more like an outdoors person?
Very, yeah.
Okay,
I'm a very
you like to
outdoor
live life.
person, adventurous. I love to live life. I love to like sit one-on-one and get to know somebody, and I love to do just adventurous stuff, you know, go to the beach, stuff like that.
Completely fucking different from your brother.
Exactly, very different from my brother. So I feel like we were very, very different people. And so we would always clash heads. I know there were so many times where we had to be like separated, you know? There was even times where I remember me and my brother, we would go like, because since my parents were co-parenting, we would go separately to the house. Like this week was my brother's week, and then this week was your week. So one week my brother would go, and then another week I would go, because we couldn't be in the same place together.
Porque puro desmadre.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
¿Cuánto
te gana? How much older is he?
He's 25 or 26. Wait, let me remember. 1998.
98 is 26. Sí,
Okay.
ya pasó su birthday.
Okay, yeah, so 1998.
98. Okay, so that's not that much of a difference, but I feel like growing up, it does make a huge difference. Like 3-4 years, you know, I feel like llega un tiempo where he was probably like, oh, I'm a teen, I'm too cool for this. Like, little brother, vete pa allá, déjame en paz. And obviously that kind of made it hard for you guys to really develop like a relationship. Do you feel like your guys' relationship is a little different now?
Our relationship is definitely different now, but not in the way that I would want it. We actually don't have like any relationship at all. We really don't have any communication. I try to be in touch with him. I try to communicate with him, but he's just living his own life.
Yeah.
But the thing about my brother is he had completely different visions, you know? I always wanted to be, I was like, I want to be a police officer. That was my like dream. I was like, oh, I want to be a police officer. I want to go out and I want to save people. I want to help people and blah, blah, blah. Obviously very different now. I don't wish to be that anymore. But at that time, that's what I wanted to be. And my brother was very into like the military. Okay. He wanted to go to the military. He wanted to be a Marine. And I feel like that was just something that ran in my family, because all of my family, a lot of my cousins, a lot of, you know, my family, that was a tradition for them is being in the military. And that was something that I wasn't really, really into. So at 17 years old, my brother left to the military, and I was like probably 13, 14 years old, you know, and I was barely a teenager. So I feel like we didn't really get to experience life together as an adult, or kind of grown up in like my teen, like as a teenager. We didn't really get to experience like life together. So I would say since then, since 17, since he left to the military, we really have not had a relationship at all. It's been very vague. He actually lives here in California, and every time I come here to see him, we don't really see each other. Obviously, I wish things were not like that. I know it takes two people to, you know, make it work. But every time I'm here, I try my best. You know, I text him, I let him know, I'm like, hey, I'm in town. You know, you want to grab a bite to eat, you want to catch up, you know. But no, till this day, we don't really have a relationship. We don't really talk. I feel like he doesn't really know me for who I am today. I don't really know who he is. I know he's married, he has a wife, he's happy. I went to their wedding, and
that's it.
I wish him the best. Like, there's no tension, there's no issues, there's no problems at all. I just feel like we're just living two completely different lives. We really don't know each other anymore. I definitely wish things were different, because I feel like I am a completely different person than I was back then. I know for a while I was like, you know, this troublemaker. I was this kid that would always, you know, get on his nerves and annoy him. But I just sometimes wish that he got to know me for who I am today, you know? Because I feel like we would like bond very well. Like, I feel like if he got to know me for the person I am today, then we would probably have a completely different relationship than we did back then when we were kids. But I don't know, just going back to it, thinking about the memories that we had, you know, traveling to Guatemala, being together, going to the beaches, going out, collecting Pokemon cards,
Yeah.
playing games together. Even though I didn't even know what I was doing, he would teach me. I would sit by his side, annoying the hell out of him because I didn't know what buttons I was clicking. And I just go back to that, and I remember all those core memories, and I'm like, I just wish that now that I'm older, we were able to like cultivate a more like we were able to cultivate like a more like a stronger relationship, you know, a better relationship where we were able to just bond and call each other whenever we needed, and you know, talk about each other's days and talk about each other's lives and go out and do this and that. But I don't know, it's very different.
Quiero platicar de un tema un poquito más sensible, and I do want to take this moment, amigas, to give a verbal trigger warning if you guys get triggered by anything that has to do with sexual assault, anything in between. Quiero platicar de un tema that happened to you from the ages of 7 to 13. Te pasó algo que te cambió la vida por completo. If you feel comfortable, cuéntanos un poquito de eso, how it first started, and when did you realize what you guys were doing wasn't okay?
So between those ages, obviously, you know, I was a kid that loved to play around, that loved to hang out with my family. I was very family oriented. I loved to go to all the family parties. I never wanted to miss one. I was very in tune with just my family and my cousins and just spending time with them. And I have a cousin who introduced me to this game that he would call House. And in this game, we would play certain roles where he would be the father and I would be the mother. And he would give me like very strict roles on what to do and how to play. And he was very advanced in it. And I was just kind of going with the flow and doing what he told me to do.
Was he older?
And he was older. He was older by, I would say, like 2 to 3 years, maybe 3 years. For a while, I didn't think he knew what he was doing, you know, for a while. Of course, as a kid, I'm just going with the flow. I'm down for anything. If you're down, I'm down. Like, let's do it. I'm like, let's play the game. I don't really talk about this, but I remember him making me put on my mom's clothes for this game. And he would make me put on her clothes. He would make me dress up as the mother and play like this very feminine role. And obviously, like as a kid, I don't know right from wrong. I don't know what we're doing. I'm not thinking twice about it. You tell me to put on her clothes, I'm like, obviously I thought it was something like weird, like, what? But then eventually I was like, okay, it's just a game. We're just gonna play. So I would put on the clothes and he would have me do like just very, very weird and uncomfortable things, very adult things. I remember him. I remember him telling me that if we didn't play this game, that something bad was gonna happen. And so as a kid, I just kind of went with the flow of things, and things started to escalate. It led from one thing to another. It led to him basically taking advantage of me, taking my innocence away, making me do things that I didn't want to do, and making me do things against my will that I don't know how to necessarily explain. But as a kid, you have this innocence, and when someone comes into your life and they take that away from you and they touch you in ways that you know you're not supposed to be touched. I was sexually assaulted and molested for 5 years straight by someone that I believed loved me. By my own family member, by someone that I was supposed to be by someone I was supposed to feel safe around. When I realized things were not right was eventually like when things kind of got too late. It was when I was in middle school. So I was already like a preteen, turning 13. So these things had been going on for years already. So whatever was happening between me and him became a norm for me. It wasn't something that I realized was wrong until I started expressing it in the form of jokes to kids at my school. And that's when I would get like made fun of. And I realized that, oh, okay, well, this is not normal. This is not what happens with your cousins. I would like bring it up to see if other people have experienced the same things. And based on their reactions, it really made me feel like maybe this isn't something that's supposed to happen. Maybe
Yeah.
this isn't something normal, you know? And obviously, as that kid, that's when I realized, like, oh, okay, like I need to separate myself. I need to get out of this situation. It's not okay. Nobody should ever make you do things against your will.
Yeah.
And the things that he would make me do, I don't even want to go into like detail because it's like, it really like it infuriates me so much because I just wish that I didn't allow myself to go through that. I wish that I wasn't so naive, but I'm a child, you know, but I just wish that I wasn't in the situation that I was in because every time I think about it, I feel so disgusted. I feel so like I hate my body, I hate myself. I have like these self-esteem issues, but one vivid memory I remember is him making me put on the clothes and making me do things that a child should never do. And that was performing certain acts that no child should ever go through. And I remember him telling me, like, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. It's okay. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
You know? He tried to comfort me as much as he can. He tried to make it like a comfortable situation. And looking back at it and thinking about it now from a whole new perspective makes me I felt very manipulated, very used.
Yeah.
I felt very worthless. You know, how could I let someone that is supposed to love me, how can I let someone that is supposed to be deemed family take advantage of me and use me and grope me in ways that no human should ever to a child, you know? No matter given his age, even if he was a kid himself, I feel like it was something that I was like struggling with. I was blocking out of my life so much. I didn't want to believe what I went through, but I was always getting these nightmares. I was always getting these flashbacks of certain episodes and things that I went through and certain memories, and they would continuously run through my brain. And I'm like, is this real? Did I really go through this? And for a while, I just didn't want to believe it. I was like, there's no way I went through this. There's no way he could even be capable of such thing. And if so, if this is real, maybe something happened to him. So I feel like do you know what the Stockholm syndrome is?
You know, it's funny, you were actually telling me about it yesterday and I looked it up, and basically it's like a syndrome where like the victim almost grows this type of empathy for their aggressor. Do you feel like that's what you use kind of like to cope and you experienced that?
Definitely. So for a while, once I finally realized what we were doing was not okay, I started to gain this sympathy. I gained this empathy for him because I felt like, well, maybe he didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he was going through something where somebody probably, you know, did something to him or perpetrated something to him. And maybe he doesn't, you know, maybe he has a life that, you know, maybe he's, you know, going through his own miseries. So for a while, I feel like I built that sympathy for him. And I was like, you know, there's no way that like, you know, there's no way that what he did to me was like on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that what he did to me was him.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought like, okay, maybe it was somebody else. But time and time again, I get the same memories over and over of things that he would make me do. Like, I don't want to go into like complete details on everything and every single specifics, but just know like the things that he would make me do, I would not wish on like my worst enemy. I think it infuriates me. It boils my blood so much thinking about it because I just wish I would have never gone through that. I wish I could like speak back to my younger self and save myself and tell myself like, hey, don't allow anybody to touch you. Don't allow anybody to take advantage of you or to make you believe that
It's okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a while, it started as house, it started at the game, but then eventually it became a norm to where we would see each other at family functions and events, and you know, he would lock us up in a room. He would lock us up in a room together. He would do stuff with. Crazy part is not just me, but other people and other people that witnessed it as well. His own brother in particular, he would like do stuff with. He would make them dress up, and I have cousins that could back that up because those are memories that they have that they remember, very vivid memories. But I just remember he would hold me against my will. We would be in a room, we would be locked up, And he would just do things to me. He would take advantage of me in the worst ways possible. And I just remember being in that situation and feeling like everything was just normal, that it was okay, that this is what cousins do, that this is what love is.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't until I was like, 13 or 14 years old when I started to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't okay.
Did you
Maybe
ever address him about it? Like, did you ever tell him, like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm realizing this isn't okay? Or did you just kind of distance yourself from him?
I distanced myself from him. We went to the same school. He was like 2 grades higher than me. So we would walk in the hallways and we would walk past each other and we would feel the tension. But in my head, it was just, I felt so much regret. I felt so disgusted. I felt so angry. I felt so indifferent. Like, I felt like the people around me didn't understand me, And I just felt so used.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to tell my family. Like, how do I tell my family about this? It went on for so long that I don't even know how to explain this.
Or
I
how
don't
do you
even know
open up
how
about
to,
it?
yeah, how do
Yeah.
I open up about this? And given the last situation, the last traumatic experience that I had when I was a kid and, I was going through that situation, it really made me feel like I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak up, that I didn't have a voice because no matter what I say was going to go through one ear out the other. And I felt like, well, I need to like collectively like reflect, and I need to like sit on this, and I need to find a way that I'm gonna tell my family. I need to find a way that I'm gonna open up about this in a way that they are gonna see me, that they are gonna believe me, understand that I'm not just this troublemaking kid because I want to be a troublemaker or because I want to be this crazy rebellious kid. That is definitely an experience that has impacted my life very strongly. It's affected me. It's affected the way that I think. It's affected my trust. It's affected the way that I see love. And I feel like till this day, I don't know. I know how to love, but I feel like I struggle with feeling loved. I
Why?
struggle because I feel like I've been in so many situations where I was taken advantage of. I've been in so many situations where I was just easily used. And I feel like I was led to believe that that's what love was.
Yeah.
So eventually when I realized what everything I was doing was not okay and that this is not what love is, I started having these second thoughts and these second guesses like, what is love? What does it mean to love? And how do I know you love me? Because the people who are telling me they love me are my own family, and they're the ones that are causing the trauma on
Yeah.
me. They're the
They're
ones that are
hurting
causing
you.
these scars, I'm emotionally scarred. I'm wounded because of the people that love me.
Yeah.
So for a while I didn't know how to feel love, how to feel somebody's love, because I didn't know if that person was, or I didn't know if that person had ulterior motives or if they had different intentions. And so for a long time, like throughout like my life, I feel like it really made me like question myself.
Did it
And
make you insecure?
I was disgusted with myself. I feel like I was very harsh and very negative on myself. It's something that I think I still struggle with. I try not to dwell on it as much, but definitely growing up, I feel like I built these patterns where like I put myself down a lot. I have self-doubt. I put myself down a lot. I don't feel, like I said, like I'm worthy of love. I don't feel like I'm worthy of being loved. I feel like it put me in a situation where I just felt like confused. I was so insecure to the point where I feel like I was deflecting those insecurities onto other people. And in school, like I would like I wouldn't like make fun of other people. I would try to like, make somebody else feel bad
Yeah.
about themselves because I was so insecure with myself. I was such in a negative mindset. I feel like I was not happy with myself at all. I felt so disgusted that here I was trying to, throw my miseries onto everybody
Yeah.
else, and it's something that I feel like I realized and I've been able to reflect on, and I realized that like hurt people hurt people.
Exactly.
You become very insecure to a point where you
Just want to hurt other
you
people
just
so
want to
feel
hurt,
good.
right? You
Yeah.
want to hurt other people because you also it's like you want other people to feel what you went
Yeah.
through. You you build like a sense of jealousy in a sense, because you see other people living happy. You see other people at that age too. When I was like 13, that's when people were getting in their first relationships. People were having, boyfriend, girlfriends, having their first kiss, doing everything. And here I am just processing life, basically trying to piece my life together, trying to figure out, what did I just go through? What happened? You know? Like, is this real? Did this really happen? I didn't want to believe it. It was just something that I wanted to block out of my life forever. I was just trying so hard to just not believe it.
Did you and the other victims ever like have a convo together of what really was going on? Or did you guys kind of just act like nothing was happening?
As you probably know, like in Hispanic families, there's a lot of things that are just swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And it's always like, don't talk about it, don't say anything. And I feel like I kind of like, that was my foundation. I feel like I got so used to things not being talked about. I felt like I got so used to things being swept under the rug, to the point where it was something that there wasn't a conversation needed. It was something that wasn't talked about. And it was just something that happened. And from one day to the next, it just was never talked
Like, you
about.
gotta keep it going.
No one said anything. You just kept it going. I was going to school like nothing. There was no type of like recovery process or anything. It was just me in my own mind, me in my own world, trying to piece everything together, trying to figure out how I'm going to start the conversation, how I'm going to tell somebody, if I even feel comfortable enough telling somebody, because I was just so disgusted with myself that I didn't want anybody to know this about me. I didn't want anybody to look at me different. And I was afraid that if I were to tell anybody, that they would tell me that I allowed it to happen like they did the first time when I went through something. So to me, it's like growing up is like you just learn not to talk about things. In Hispanic families, you just learn not to talk about things. You learn to just bottle everything up and just not let it out, because if you let it out, it's a problem. If you let it out, it creates a very uncomfortable conversation that you're not prepared to have. There's stigmas that we should break, you know, and especially me as a guy, when your perpetrator is a guy himself, it puts you in these weird, uncomfortable positions where there's already standards out there. It's already a standard where, you know, if a guy does something to a guy, it's already deemed like weird and disgusting and out of pocket. And it's like, that's something that I couldn't control. That's something that I felt like, for me, I didn't want to talk about, because I didn't want anybody to see me in a different light. I didn't want anybody to feel like I allowed myself to be in this position, that is something that I enjoyed or something that I liked or something that I allowed to happen. Because if I could change the outcome, I would, in a heartbeat.
Do you feel like you struggled growing up when it came down to like your sexuality? Did it ever make you confused what you liked and what you didn't like? If so, cuéntanos un poquito de eso.
It definitely caused a lot of confusion in my life, because, of course, I seen my mom and dad growing up together. Well, not together, you know, but I seen my mom and dad together up until I was like 5 years old, and I saw what it was like to be in love, and I saw like the kids at my school having, you know, relationships, and like I just knew that I was like so different from the rest because of the experiences that I had. I feel like something was taken away from me that shouldn't have, and it caused a lot of confusion in my life. I felt like everyone was living their life, everybody was happy, everyone was in their relationships, and here I am questioning myself. Here I am questioning my being, my existence. Here I am questioning, you know, what I like, because the only thing that I ever know, the only thing that I know is that relationship that I had with my cousin. So for me, it definitely built a lot of confusion on me. There were so many times where I felt so disgusted with myself. I felt like I wanted to rip my skin apart. I felt like I don't want to be inside of my body. I felt so like detached from the world. I felt so detached from everybody around me, because I felt like I was living a completely different life. It's still something that I struggle with till this day. I feel like it's definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things. The trauma definitely did create some confusion and some insecurities in my life that I feel like still linger on like today. I feel like throughout like my middle school and high school years, I I never really knew where I fit in. I never really knew what I liked or what I was attracted to. Like, I knew what I was supposed to be attracted to because of what I grew up to understand was normal,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because obviously, growing up, I was taught that, that it's girl and boy, and this is the way that life is supposed to be,
Yeah.
Given the fact that this happened to me, it put my mind in such an uncomfortable space where I was just so confused, and I felt so different from the world. I felt like it was so hard for me to form relationships, to form friendships, because I always felt like the odd one out. There was always something that I seen in someone that I didn't have, that I
Yeah.
didn't experience. And I saw everybody was like talking about their crushes and who they liked and who they wanted. And I couldn't even figure out who my crush was. I couldn't figure out who I liked and who I wanted to be with, because I just felt like in the back of my mind, I was just so focused on the trauma that I
Trying
went
to
through
heal.
and trying to heal. This was like a recovery process for me. And it's made a big impact on my life because, look, I'm 22 years old now and I'm still a virgin. I've never even experienced sexually with anybody. I've never gone out of my way to open up myself or to even go out and experience with anyone, because I've always felt so afraid. I always felt like I don't know if what I'm doing is right. I feel like I haven't really got to like really experience what it is that I want, what it is that I like. If even
You want to experience
if
it.
even I want to experience it, because the first time experiencing it was very, very traumatic.
Yeah.
It was not something that was romantic to me at all. It was something, if anything, that makes me feel disgusted. And I feel like it's definitely made me view things very differently. I have a very different perspective on life, on relationships, on love and romance. And I feel like it's very hard for me to find love. It's very hard for me to find somebody that I am, attracted to in that sense. I'm emotionally attracted to people.
Yeah.
I feel like I have recently, like in the last year, been able to finally, like get sexually attracted to people. And it's still something that I'm like confused about.
Without making
It's still
yourself feel
something,
weird.
exactly,
Yeah.
without making myself feel weird. Exactly. So I feel like it's still definitely a learning process. I'm still kind of experiencing, I'm still kind of going through it. I'm still trying to figure out my life out. I'm still kind of trying to build up like that trust
Yeah.
for people. I'm slowly learning more and more about myself. And I realized that in today's society, you don't need to conform to any societal expectation or to a certain label. And that's something that I'm learning on my own. Like, I don't need to label myself. If I'm still in that experimental stage of my life where I'm still trying to figure myself out, like, I always tell myself, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone is always trying to figure me out. Everyone is always trying to put a certain
Label on you. Yeah.
me. And it's like, I haven't even figured that out myself yet. I haven't even been in my first relationship yet. Obviously, I've been in situations where I've, felt like, I felt the romance and I loved somebody and I was connected with somebody, emotionally. And I feel like that's something that I'm still going through. It's still something that I'm still trying to figure out in my life right now. And I just, I don't know. I wouldn't really conform myself to a label. I really
Yeah.
wouldn't really put a label to myself, because of course the things that I went through, and of course the things that I'm still trying to figure out about myself. And I just don't think it's fair for,
Like you're still trying to heal.
yeah.
I want to go a little bit back, nos cuentas un poquito de que tu primo, how is that today? Do you constantly see him at like family functions? If so, is it awkward? Actúan como si nada pasó?
I wish things were different. I do still see him from time to time. I haven't really seen him recently, but I do see him from time to time. Hear my family talking about him sometimes. I'll overhear his name. Sometimes I'll be walking at the store and I'll run into him, or I'll see him somewhere because he still lives in the area. And it is a situation that I shut down in. I feel like the moment I hear his name, the moment I see him, the moment I hear he's coming, I shut down. I feel like I emotionally opt out, and I start to like panic.
Yeah.
I have this panic attack and I have this fear and I shut myself out and I don't want to talk to anyone and I start trembling and I feel like I get very, very anxious. But I've always had that since I was a kid. I've always been this very, very anxious kid. But anytime that I see him or any given situation that I hear that he's there, you'll see it on my mood quick, so fast my mood changes because I just cannot be in a room with him. I can't be in a room with him. I can't see him. Emotionally, physically, mentally, I don't feel okay. I don't feel like I can even
Face your aggressor.
face my aggressor. But I think that is more so because of the fact that when I did come out with my story, I was actually 17 years old when I came out about it. I remember I was sitting on the bed with my tia. We were listening to a podcast, actually. Ironic, huh? We were listening to a podcast. It was called Family Podcast, and there was a specific segment where they were talking about family traumas and things that they went through, etc. And one of the things that they were talking about hit really close to home. And I remember laying on her bed. We made eye contact. We looked at each other, and she could just tell off of my facial expressions that just something was not okay.
Yeah.
And so something led her to ask me a question. She asked me a question. I just let everything out, let my emotions out. I said one thing, and that was it. She knew. She knew the rest. She had a feeling already. She had had an idea. And I was like, okay, like, wow. Like, it felt like a relief.
Did she believe you in that moment?
In that moment, she did. In that moment, she believed me. I felt good. I felt relief. But I also felt very anxious and I felt scared because I knew eventually he was going to find out.
Yeah.
All I remember is him telling me not to tell anybody. So my tia ended up calling my mom. She ended up, we were crying. Everyone was crying. I was in the room. My tia was in her room. I was just bawling. I didn't want to see anybody. She called my mom. My mom came bawling her eyes out. She was like, I failed you as a son. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Everything started to make sense because there were so many times where my mom would catch me in her dresses. There was many times where she would catch me it was a norm. Her clothes were missing. And she's like, where are my clothes at? And it was just something I couldn't explain to her. I didn't know how to explain to her. I didn't know how to tell her that, hey, this is my own cousin. It was just very, very emotional. My mom was just crying. She felt like she failed me as a mother. And I was just reassuring her that it was okay, that there was nothing that she could have done. Because of course, I don't want my mom to feel bad. I don't want anybody to feel bad for the situations that I went through. Of course, I wish outcomes were different, but I do understand that it is something that happens in families. And sometimes it's not anyone's fault. And I try not to put blame on anybody. I don't know. I just try not to make other people feel bad for the things that I went
¿Cómo se
through.
dio cuenta tu primo that everyone kind of knew? Did you guys ever tell his parents or what was that like?
So once my mom found out, she called my tío, which is his father. She called him and she briefly explained to him the situation. I don't really know the conversation that they had, but I do know that she basically told him she basically told him what he did to me, and my tío said that he was going to have a conversation with him. It was very vague. It wasn't this long conversation or oh, you need to come here right now. We need to talk in person. It was more so of oh, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call. I'm going to ask this question. And it never got resolved after that. The last thing that I know is my uncle asked him if it happened and if it was true. And he asked him the question in front of his little brother, who was also a victim. And the response that he got was no, that never happened. They took that, they ran with it. They came back to me and told me that it never happened, that he denied it, it never happened. And we just swept it under the rug, never got talked about it ever again. We just continued with life. He told me that he wanted to talk to me in person and have a conversation with me so I can get more in depth about it. And we never had that conversation. And I still see my tío to this day. I still, see that cousin. And to me, it's just an uncomfortable feeling being around them because I feel like he had every opportunity to create that conversation. And the way that he chose to do it, it was in a very irresponsible way. How could you take such a sensitive and serious topic and just ask your child then and there in the car while the other victim is there in the back and ask, it was like he asked a true or false question.
Yeah.
He got a false, he said it was false, and that's it, and they swept under the rug. They didn't try to question anything. They didn't try to get my story. They didn't try to hear me out, and things just kind of went that way. So the last thing that I know is him denying it, and then I started hearing from his mom that that she was obviously, his mom, she's not related to me at all. So of course she's like going to be in his defense. And his mom was saying like, oh, there's no way that could have ever happened. They were never even together that long. They were never even around.
Like,
he was always with me. Puras excusas, exacto.
Yeah.
I felt like, how are you going to tell me what I went through if I'm the one going through it? I'm the one experiencing this. These are my life experiences, and I'm talking about what I went through, and I'm not asking you whether you believe me or not. I am a very, very forgiving person. If my cousin would have came to me and told me, hey, you know what? I did this to you. I'm sorry. I know what I did was wrong. I feel like I would have been...
I feel like it would give you closure.
It would have definitely gave me some closure. I feel like I would have felt a little better. Of course, the trauma still sits, but I feel like I would have felt a little better.
Yeah.
I feel like life would have moved a little different. I feel like navigating life after that for me was very hard. It was very hard because I felt like my story was taken and it was not heard. It was not seen. No one cared. No one cared to even ask. No one even cared to check up on me. No one cared to even bother to even go into detail about what happened and what went down, because it wasn't something that I was just going to bring up out of nowhere. It wasn't like a conversation that I was going to, I wasn't going to be at the dinner table and be like, hey, so this is what happened. So-and-so, did this to me. This is what we went through. I feel like after I told my family, I feel like I was kind of waiting for people to come to me, because one thing about my family, like once one person finds out something, the next person finds out, and then now the whole family,
everyone knows,
everybody in Guatemala probably found out. I know everyone found out. And I knew everybody knew, but no one ever came to me and asked me like questions. Are you okay? Like, what happened? Even if I wasn't in the mood to explain, even if I was like emotionally opted out and not okay, I think it was the principle of people like just checking on me and being there for me. So the process after that, it was very hard for me. I feel like it manifested itself in like eating disorders, body dysmorphia. I started gaining a lot of weight. I started eating a lot, binge eating. I hated myself. I built low self-esteem. I feel like I was like trying to be somebody that I wasn't. I was trying so hard to like fit into crowds and to be somebody and try to feel seen and to be validated. I even put myself into friend groups that I didn't belong. I started conforming to their styles and what they would do. And I realized that I didn't fit in, that I was just this person that was seeking validation, seeking this attention from other people, because I wasn't getting it within like my own household or within my own family for the things that I went through. I gained so much weight. I was so unhappy with myself. Like I said, I was going through all these different phases, and I ended up losing weight. I ended up, I felt like I just felt so disgusted with myself. I wanted to change something about myself. I was like, I'm not happy with myself. What can I do to change myself? I was like getting picked on. People were picking on me. My family was always telling me like, you're getting heavier, que te pasa, but never really focused on the underlying issues and what I was really going through and why.
Like, why is he getting bigger?
Why is he getting bigger? It was more so like, you need to stop eating. You're getting big. You need to go to the gym. You need to do something, you're lazy. Anytime there was like some type of like unusual situation about me, it was always like, to my family, it was like some type of like negative thing that I wanted or that I chose. So I wanted to change myself, so I started to lose weight, I started going to the gym, and I didn't really like it. I felt like, I don't know, I felt like it was just too much. I felt like it was just too much work for me. And so that's when I started, trigger warning to anyone, but I started to like not eat. I started to not eat.
Malpasarte.
Yes. And then even in the times that I would eat, because, in Hispanic families, Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, it's so hard to resist the food. I would eat my food and like nobody would know, but I would secretly go to the bathroom. I would spend so much time in the bathroom that people would think like, what are you doing in the bathroom so long? Oh, he's taking a shit. He's doing, but the whole time I was throwing up my food. I was not happy with myself. I felt so disgusted. I was in the bathroom just trying to get this food out of my body. I felt so disgusted. I didn't even feel like I was like deserving of food. I didn't feel like I was deserving of that. So I started to lose weight like very, very drastically. I actually lost 175 pounds in a matter of 6 months. So in 6 months, I lost 175 pounds, and this was around COVID. This was around COVID.
Just from throwing up?
Yes. And then after the 6 months was when I started going to the gym and I started to eat healthy and I started meal prepping and I really got into the healthy side of
Yeah.
things. I was over exercising a lot. I was tracking my calories. I became very obsessed with it. At first, it started, like I said, I went to the gym. It started as something like, okay, this is something new and different. I was even telling my friends, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna lose weight. I don't care. Today, I'm starting my diet. And me telling myself every day, I'm gonna start my diet.
You're like,
you
on
know?
Monday
Yeah.
comes,
No,
didn't start it.
literally. So that was me, except I really followed through with it. But after like a week, I was like, you know what? Like, this is just too much. I need more. Like, I feel like I craved like the weight loss. Like, I saw the progress and I noticed the number on the scale and I was like, it keeps going down. It keeps going down. I need to do more and more to get myself there. So I was buying weight loss pills. I was taking vitamins. I was
Oh,
doing
shit.
even apple cider vinegar shots for breakfast. I was doing gummies. I was taking all types of like vitamins and things to like lose weight faster.
Yeah.
I was wearing fajas. I was wearing like 3-4 of
Like,
them.
you became obsessed.
I was so obsessed because I
Yeah.
saw the number on the scale and I feel like I really allowed that number to like take over and to define me. And so I started losing weight. And as I was losing weight, people started telling me like, oh, you're so much happier. You're getting so much better. You're healthier. I kept getting all of these compliments where people were like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so much better. You're thriving, which obviously, you know, I am proud of myself for how far I've become. But in that moment, I was a hurt person.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was really going through it. And I don't feel like anybody really seen that. I feel like everyone's seen it in a positive way. Like, oh, he's finally losing weight. He's doing really good.
Yeah.
But I was going through it. I feel like that was like a really dark place in my life. I've had hit rock bottom. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get myself out of this rut. I became so obsessed that I'm like, I am getting skinny and skinny and skinny. But I was so obsessed with it. And so eventually I started to like do the right things. I started to eat healthy. I started going to the gym. I was in a calorie deficit, you know. I was like doing the right thing because my brother's wife, she's like a personal trainer. And so she would like send me like workouts and things to do. And I was like, okay, once I was able to find structure and get on a routine, that's when I was like, oh, okay, it's game over. Like I could do this.
Yeah.
I realized once I started to implement that calorie deficit, I was like, okay, it's not about whether, you know, I go out and I have like a few cookies or I go out and I have tacos or whatever. It's just about how much you eat and how much you indulge. And that's when I realized like, so I can really, like, I need to be nice to my body. I can feed myself. It's okay to feed yourself. It's okay to go have those tacos. So I started eating more and more. And that's when I realized I was still losing weight while eating. So I was like losing weight and then I was like gaining weight in muscle and I was getting like more lean. And then I went through so many phases where I was like, I gained weight and then I cut and then I gained weight and I cut. And like, I'm still in that process, you know? But once I figured it out and once I found like that hope, I'm like, okay, like I know what to do now. I know what I need to do. I need to be nicer to myself. I need to feed my body. I need to give my body that energy in order for me to thrive. Like I realized I snapped out of it. I was like, no, this is not okay. I can't do this. I can't keep doing this. I'm living a lie. Everyone thinks I'm eating. And here I am, you know, throwing everything up. And to me, it was just like, it was not a comfortable feeling at all. It was like, those were the worst days of my life that I never want to look back on. But I am definitely proud of like how far I've come because it definitely was a journey. I don't want that to take away from the fact that I did put a lot of work into the gym. You know, I was working hard. I was going on runs. I was very in tune with my weight loss journey, you know? And yeah, that's just like how my childhood was.
First of all, before we move forward, I really do want to say that I appreciate you sitting here and having this conversation with me because I know how empowering this can be for anyone at home that is currently or has gone through anything similar. What advice can you give to anyone who's ever gone through anything similar and maybe is still trying to like piece their life together after that?
One thing I will say is you are not defined by the obstacles that you go through. You're not defined by the hurt. You're not defined by who doesn't believe you. I feel like stand your truth, stand your ground, and know that whatever you went through, eventually it's going to come to light.
Yeah.
Someone will believe you. Somebody will see you. And I just encourage people, like if you've ever gone through something where you've felt taken advantage of or you felt unseen or unheard, that, I mean, I believe you. I know there is people out there that will believe you. And I know it hurts feeling unseen and feeling invalidated, but hold on to your truth. Always hold on to your truth, because eventually the truth will come to light and people will see that.
Hey amigas, if you know me, you know I adore my handbags and I always strive to keep them looking pristine. Y pues déjales digo, I've just discovered Curate, the ultimate solution for protecting and preserving my purse collection, ensuring they stay beautiful and last forever. Think about it. You clean and maintain your shoes, your car, even your body. So why not give your luxury handbags the same care? These bags are an investment, and with Curate, you can make sure they last a lifetime. Plus, if you ever decide to resell, Curate helps you keep your bags in perfect condition so you can get top dollar. In today's world where overconsumption is a big issue, it's crucial to make things last as long as possible. By taking care of our handbags with Curate, we can do just that. Ustedes saben, amigas, that I have a purse collection of my own and I love using Curate porque me las deja limpiecitas y cada vez que salgo lucen como nuevas. If you want to go ahead and try Curate, there's a limited supply available, so head to mycurate.com to get your leather care kit today. That is mycurate.com. The best way to make your handbags last forever. Once again, that is mycurate.com. Now a word from our next sponsor. Quiero platicar de otro tema. Ayer me estabas contando que a los 14 años tu tía te mandó a la cárcel. Literal, estuviste en la cárcel por todo un día. Cuéntanos un poquito de eso. How did that happen? Why were you in jail? And just how that was for you.
I did end up like in jail. It wasn't like jail. It was more so like a Beyond Scared Straight episode. Like, let me
juvie
scare you.
vibes.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I was in a holding cell. So the way that this all happened was, as a kid, like I said, I was like very, very family oriented. I would spend a lot of time with my tia, and this specific tia, she was a police officer.
Okay.
So keep in mind, she was a police officer, and I remember like on my birthday, she invited me over to her house, and I was there hanging out with her. We were swimming in her pool. We were doing stuff together, and she let me use her iPad every time that we would go over. And I remember I downloaded this one game. It was called The World of Magic. It was like an IMO game. And it was a game where you can like collect platinum and you can like get armor and collect pets and use that platinum to like grow this community and like just have a bunch of cool stuff in the game. So I was playing this game, and obviously as a kid, like I said, I was very,
Tremendo,
very
yes.
like tremendo. So as I was playing this game, I went to go try to buy platinum on her iPad. And when I went to go hit purchase, I saw like the face that I had, I went from like a straight face to like I was like, oh my God, it went through. Like the purchase was successful.
Much?
Yeah, so it was $50. It started at $50, right? But of course, it didn't just stop there at the $50. I bought what I needed, I got what I got, and then I just felt so cool in the game. I felt like, oh my God, everybody was like, no way, you got that rare pet. I just felt like it made me like, I feel like
seen.
Yes, it made me feel seen in the game. So I was playing this game and I was like buying all this stuff, and eventually I started to buy more platinum, and I just kept like spamming the button. I don't even know how many times I bought. I just know that I kept buying and buying and buying. I even went up to the $100 amount and I was just buying and buying. Yeah, no, I emptied out her bank account on the game. I think it was like $1,000.
Damn,
It was like,
on the game.
What is it gonna do? Another 50 won't hurt. And obviously, like, as a kid, like to me, this is free money.
Yeah.
To me, like this is like
this is my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is not my money. Like this is a dream to me. So I just kept purchasing it and purchasing it. At this time, I think it was my 13th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 13 years old. I remember like leaving her house. I remember like I felt guilty. Obviously, like I had this guilty conscience in me, Obviously, I knew I did something wrong. I knew I did something I wasn't supposed to do. But I feel like, after a while, I just like, I forgot about it. I forgot what I did. I didn't even remember about it. I still continued going to my tia's house like nothing. We were still hanging out. She was still inviting me over. So after a while, I figured like, oh, okay, like
she's never gonna find out.
Yeah. She's never gonna find out. It's okay. I don't even have to think about it. Like, it's already been over a year. Tia doesn't even know about it. She's still inviting me over. Like, just don't do it again and we're going to be okay. So eventually, a few years later, I was 15 actually when all the cops came and everything. Yeah. So I was 15 because it was 2 years later. I remember I was at another tia's house of mine. Sorry, I have like a huge family. As you can see, I was always spending time with my tias. Like I was literally raised by all of my family. So shout out to them. But I was staying at my tia's house. I was getting ready for school. It was like bright and early. Birds just woke up. It's 6 a.m. I'm like, one eye open. I hear banging at the door. My tia comes in the room, wakes me up. She's like, Lucas, what did you do? What did you do? And I'm like, what? She was like, the cops are outside. And I'm like, what for what? Like, and I'm thinking in my head, like, wait, what did I do? I could think of so many things right now. Like, what did I do? You
But
know?
by this time, you weren't taking any more money?
No.
Okay, so
no.
you're like, girl, it has nothing to do with tia.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You're like, fuck,
So-
what did I do?
Right.
You're
So
like,
in my head, I'm thinking like, wait, is it the one time I did this, or that was it this one time last year? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm thinking of the more recent stuff. I wasn't trying to think 2 years back. Eventually, you know, cops knocked at the door, and it's funny because at this time, my cousin was leaving to go get dropped off to school when the cops arrived.
Yeah.
And so they went up to him and they were like, oh, are you Lucas? And they went up to him to grab him and they were about to take him to jail. And that's when my tia was like, oh, no, that's not Lucas. He's in the house. Yeah, they're like, nah, he's over there.
Yeah.
So the cops came to the door. They banged on the door. They're looking for me. I was just upstairs all scared, all nerves. My tia's like, you have to go down. You have to go down. Like,
You're all
what did you
shitting
do?
bricks,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
shitting bricks. She's like, what did you do? Mind you, I still don't know what I did. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, sí
thinking of some
sabía.
things. Huh?
Ella sí sabía.
No,
huh?
she didn't know.
Oh, she didn't know either.
No. She didn't know either. So she was just thinking in the back of her mind, like, damn, what did Lucas do? I think she was
Yeah.
thinking like worst case scenario. Because eventually when they found out what it really was, I think it was just like a shocker, like to the family. They were like, no way, that's why? Like what?
So they
But-
arrested you, and then what happened?
So what happened was the cops came, I went down there and they ended up arresting me. They put me in the back of the car. Mind you, they did not tell me anything, why I was under arrest, why they were taking me to jail. They didn't tell me anything. They just pulled up, bunch of cop cars. I was like, okay. In my head, I was thinking of a scenario. So I was like, okay, I am guilty. Like, take
Yeah.
me, like, let's go. I'm guilty, you know. I might have did something. Maybe it's because I pulled the fire alarm in school that one time, you know. I was like, was it that one time that I threw eggs at my school? And like, you know, I was like, wait, do I rat myself out? Do I not? Like, what do I say? So when they asked me like, hey, so do you know why you're here? I was like, no. You know, good thing I
Yeah.
said the right answer, right? Because I was like, wait, fudge, what if I end up saying something
And
that
they're
they
like,
don't know?
Nada que ver, but we'll add that to the tab.
Exactly,
Ah,
right? So
literally.
then when they finally told me what it was, they told me like my aunt's name and everything. As soon as they told me their name and if I knew who this lady was, I was like, oh yeah, that's my tia. That's my aunt. They were like, oh, she's your aunt? Like she works with us. She's our colleague. And I'm like, oh, really? And they were like, yeah. So there was a time, this was back in like 2014 where you used her debit card and you went on a shopping spree and you bought all of this stuff for all of these games, these IMO games, mobile games. And I was just sitting there like,
You're like, what the
yeah.
hell?
I was
forgot
like,
about that.
yeah, I was like, what the heck?
You're like, I don't even have the fucking game anymore.
Literally, I'm like,
Literally.
wait, I haven't played that game in about like a year
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
hold on, no way, they got me. I was like, oh, okay, that was like my, you know, like I got caught
Yeah.
moment, you know? It was a very humbling moment because here I am thinking like, you know, I'm not gonna ever get caught, and then they get me. And so then when I explained to them the situation, it easily came to my brain. I remembered everything. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. It was the time I was using her iPad. I went on a shopping spree. You know, I bought all of the platinum that I could. You know, I was the best in the game. And they said that they were under the impression that I took, like, I guess the way that the report was made was that I took her card. Like, I took her physical card and I went on a shopping spree. And I went out and I made all these purchases and I bought shoes and I bought clothes and I bought
Yeah,
stuff for
yeah.
myself and whatnot. But that's just the report that my tia made.
Yeah.
But basically my tia exaggerated the report. She did it on purpose. She exaggerated the report because that's just how she is. That's
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
her nature. She's very exagerada, literally in everything that she does. I mean, she's a cop, so she
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
cop. She was literally
And
the
she
cop.
was like, I'm going to exaggerate it so they can take it serious.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah.
Yes. From the beginning, the cops told me like, really, seriously, like this is your aunt. Like she couldn't just talk to you. She couldn't
Yeah.
just have a conversation with you. I was like, no, actually, I just seen her last week.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been seeing her in the last few years and she has not brought up the conversation to me. She has not said anything to me. And it was just like, to me, obviously, like I knew I did something wrong. I
Yeah.
took accountability. I know I should have never done that. But for me, it was like, well, why couldn't you just like reprimand me and tell
Yeah.
me? And why couldn't we go through this differently? You know, like why did you have to go the extra mile and write a whole report? Not only make a report, but also specify that you want the maximum sentence for me.
Yeah.
That's what she put on there. She put maximum sentence, and she wanted me to go through the worst thing so that I could like grow or learn from it. And so that was her mindset, was we need to, because for a while, even when I was like getting in trouble or in school, or I was like doing bad things, or I was very travieso, my tia, she always wanted me to go through a day in jail, like the beyond scared straight.
Okay.
She was like, we need to send him to jail for.
Aprenda.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So that was my moment. They took me there. They put me in a holding cell and everything. They basically just told me like, oh, if I remembered what I did and do I remember how much? And I'm like, I really don't remember how much. And they were like, well, it was actually like almost $1,000. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like I didn't even know, because at that time I didn't know anything about.
No wonder you were hella popular in the game.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I was so popular in the game. I was like #1 on the stats. Basically, long story short, like she ended up like pressing charges against me. She ended up like doing the maximum sentence and then also taking me to court. And she was so hurt by it. She was so like betrayed by it, in which I understand. And I was very like remorseful when that situation happened, because I remember like finding out about it. Well, obviously I already knew, but I remember when I found out like how she really felt. I felt like, damn, like, did I break my family apart?
Yeah.
Like, I was so close to her. Like, I'm telling you, we were like rock solid.
Did you guys have to pay a fine or something?
No, we didn't have to pay anything. But I later found out that, like, you know, I mean, it happens to the best of us. We all get fraud on our cards, right? And when you go through the process, depending on if you have a credit card or debit card, you can get your money back faster if it's credit, and debit, it takes a while. But normally you get your money back from the banks. She got her money back like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
All the money back. So she had already got all the money back. So I think what she did was just to teach me a lesson.
Yeah, quería que aprendiera. She was like, you know what? Este muchacho anda en friega everywhere. Si no aprende, lo voy a hacer que aprenda.
Exactly.
Literally.
Exactly.
¿Y aprendiste?
For sure. No, for sure.
You're like,
I
never
definitely,
again.
yeah, no, I definitely changed my ways after that. It definitely was a learning like lesson for me. But it definitely created like some tension within our family, because there was a lot of family that felt like it was unfair.
Yeah.
There was a lot of my family that felt like, well, she could have handled it differently. She didn't need to do it the way that she did. And I feel like because of that, we don't have a relationship anymore. I don't have a relationship with her at all. I feel like she still sees me as like a bad person.
Yeah,
she
the
still sees me as like,
burglar.
she sees me as like a criminal. Like every time I'm traveling or doing something, she always
like,
thinks
hide
like,
your card.
no, literally, she always thinks I'm up to no good, or I'm always up to something. So it definitely did affect our relationship. I wish that it didn't, because obviously I'm an older person now. I've learned from my mistakes. I know that, you know, that does not reflect, you know, me as a kid. Those actions don't reflect who I am today.
Yeah.
And I just wish that it could be a conversation that we could laugh about. And that we could talk about and be like, you remember the time where, you know, I used your card and I bought all this stuff and did this and that, you know? But it's okay.
It's okay. Ya si está mirando esto, ya cambió el Lucas. Perdón. Yo quiero platicar de otra cosa. Obviamente ahorita te vemos all over social media on everyone's For You pages, but it wasn't always like that. Platícanos un poquito, ¿cómo empezaste tú a crear contenido, and what made you be like, you know what? Maybe I should get my phone, record myself, and upload it, because who knows where it'll go.
So as a kid, I was always that one kid that was always like recording my life. I always had like, you know, my little iPod. I was walking around the school. I was always like vlogging, acting like I had a YouTube channel. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, you know, even though I had like 1 subscriber, you know.
You're all talking to yourself.
Literally, you know, I'm subscribed to myself on one account. I feel like I was always like that kid that just was, I feel like I was just like, I don't know. I feel like I was always that kid that like was meant to do like social media, or like meant to film. I remember like when I started on like Vine, back when Vine was a thing. And then I started on Musical.ly, and then I started creating content, but I didn't have like any content strategy or anything. It was just more so free for all and filming whatever came to my mind, you know, as a kid. And so eventually, after Musical.ly, I found this one app, and it was called YouNow.
Okay. Oh, I remember. It was like the live streaming app.
Yes. So there was this app, and it was YouNow. And I remember I started live streaming on there, and I started going live every single day. I started building a following up on there. I met a lot of really, really cool people from there. And a lot of people actually from Musical.ly would go on to YouNow. So a lot of like even the biggest Musical.ly stars being there, I met a lot of like those creators. I got to, you know, go live with some of them. I got to meet a lot of cool people. I started building a platform for myself on there. I remember I was like going on people's talent shows. even though I had no talent. I had no
Yes.
talent at all, but I would go on there, I would sing my heart out, I would dress up, I remember like there was like this Halloween contest one time on there, and I went on there and I got like third place and I won some money, and I would go live and people would like send me gifts, kind of how TikTok is right now
Yeah.
with the gifts, the whole gift thing. I was going through that way back then on YouNow where people were sending me gifts, and I would spend so much money too, sending people gifts back on YouNow.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really did build like this sense of community over there where it ended up like transferring over to my other socials.
Yeah.
I then created a YouTube channel after that because I got so comfortable, being on YouNow and building this platform. I had like maybe like 5,000 people following me on
Yeah.
YouNow. And at that time, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot
for
of
me.
people still now.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm like, I'm a young kid, and I'm like, 5,000 people? Like, that's crazy. There's no way. Like, maybe I should really start my YouTube channel. Enough of the fake vlogging, enough
Yeah.
of the fake things. Let's really get on top of my stuff. Let's make that YouTube channel. So I created a YouTube channel, and I still didn't really have a niche. I didn't
Yeah.
really know what I wanted to film, but I just knew I wanted to do something,
Yeah.
So I started with Hispanic skits. I started making skits, and then from then I would do vlogs, and then I would move over to challenges and then pranks, and I would just do everything that everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
And I was like really following the trends and following like my favorite creators, seeing what they were doing, kind of trying to like implement different strategy. People were following me. There was definitely a lot of people who didn't believe in me. There was a lot of people like in my school who always thought like, oh, like he swears he's gonna be a YouTuber. He swears he's gonna be something. Like they always doubted me,
Yeah.
So I just kept going and going. And for a while, like I didn't see any growth. So eventually after like a year, that's when I really started to notice like the progression.
Yeah.
I noticed that with consistency came growth. And as I remained consistent, I started gaining followers after followers. I remember I made this one viral video, and it was the Chubby Bunny Challenge.
Okay. Mhm.
And you remember?
Uh-huh.
I was doing the Chubby Bunny Challenge, and the video got like 10K views. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm viral.
famous,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, LA, here I come. Like, that was like, oh my God, I made it moment for
Yeah.
me at that age. I was like, oh my God, I made it.
How old were you at the time?
I was 15.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was an I made it moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had just turned 15. So mind you, this was like a year. I was doing social media since I was like 13.
Yeah.
Like 13, 14 years old, since a young kid, since I could even remember. But yeah, so that was like I made it moment for me. I had 10K of views. And then after that, I started like posting more and more, but my videos were not performing the same way.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just gonna keep posting and posting. And eventually I kept like, posting content, and I started doing like Hispanic skits. And I noticed those started to like take off a lot, and people were really interested in those skits. I started including more of my family. I was including like my cousins and my tias and everybody,
familia,
literally
yeah.
everybody was like so invested, because once my family saw that I was doing YouTube and it was taking off and I was getting like support, they were like, "Ooh, let's create videos together."
Yeah.
And that's one thing like that I like admire a lot too, like about my family. Like they were very like
They were down for you.
yeah, they were very
yeah.
like down for me. And so I love that. Like if I was down to create something, they didn't know what to do, but all I had to do is tell them what to do,
Yeah.
and I would do it. So I started making skits, I started growing, and then every single day I started getting like 1 to 200 new subscribers. I started doing challenges, and eventually I started growing. I reached my first 10K. I went up to 30K, then 40, then 60, and I just kept going up and up and
Yeah.
up. I remember at one point I stopped growing for like a year and a half, and I was like, damn, like this is like my like fall off moment,
You're like, I'm done. Let me go look for a job.
and
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
I'm like, this is my time. Like, let me go look for a job. Let me go get my permit. Like, let me go focus on
Yeah.
something else. And so, yeah, I've been doing it like social media for a while now. I feel like it's always been something that I've been into.
Yeah.
I feel like I just have so much to share, and I I just like storytelling. I
Yeah.
like creating content I like creating content that allows other people to kind of like to feel related to me.
You start doing social media, and at one point it starts picking up very rapidly. What was your aha moment where you're like, oh shit, I can make social media a full-time job if I really get my shit together? Did you have like a big sponsorship, or did you just have like a big paycheck that you're like, oh shit, there's actually money involved when it comes to social media?
So from you now, actually, that was my biggest paycheck. So by going live, I remember I made my first, it wasn't that much, but
Yeah.
to me at that age, at 15 years old, making $3,000 for just one live in 1 month that's someone else's
That's a
paycheck.
lot. Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. That's a lot. Like that's someone else's paycheck. Like
Yeah.
that is, to me, was just like, I just felt very like, I felt very grateful. I felt very blessed. I felt very like privileged. Like
Yeah.
there's no way a 15-year-old is able to just go live and make $3,000 off of just going live and getting gifts. It was like such a good feeling. I just felt like, well, what do I do with this money now that I have it?
Yeah.
And that's when I started like, coming up with like different ways and different strategies of, trying to implement different business strategies. And that's when I became like an entrepreneur. And I was like, I want to start a business. I want to do this. I told my mom, I woke up one day and I was like, Mom, I want to start a business. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something. I don't know if I want to go and do landscaping. I don't know if I want to go shovel snow. I don't know what I want to do. So we came up with a business concept, and shout out to my mom. Growing up, like I would always give my mom like massages all the time. Anytime my mom needed a massage, she had a hard day at work, she would come home and be like, Lucas, like, I need your massage. Like, I need you to massage me. Can you, come up here? Every time she called me to the room, I already knew what she needed. She needed me to massage her. So I would give her massages. I was surprisingly like really, really good at it. Me and my mom, we came up with this concept, and it was called Lucas, the Suitcase Masseuse. So I started in a suitcase.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, you were travel,
exactly.
okay.
So I started in a suitcase, and my mom bought me all of the cream. She bought me everything that I needed, all of the supplies for me to start my business. And I started with a suitcase, and then I would like travel to people's homes. I would go to family parties, and I would do I was like the one in the corner at the party massaging people's feet. I know some people are gonna get disgusted or like weirded out by it, but
hey, but that's kind of low-key convenient though. Imagínense, amigas, estar zapateando y zapateando y zapateando, and then after the zapateado, ahí te espera Lucas.
Yes, exactly.
For a massage.
Yep.
I love that.
And a massage chair and everything.
Yeah.
I had a massage chair. I had a bucket of water. I had like a little jacuzzi.
Like all professional.
Everything. Epsom salt. I had the oils.
Okay.
I had everything.
Y no te daba asco touching people's feet?
No.
You're like, let me make you feel better.
I don't have a feet fetish.
Me either.
It depends though whose feet they were. Because like when it came to my tío's feet, I was like, oh no, you're going to have to pay me double.
Yeah, you're like, this is crusty dusty.
Yeah, I was like,
bro.
I was like, no, this is out of my league. Like, I feel like I was more comfortable like doing like either people my age or like women's feet.
Yeah.
Because my tíos, the older tíos, I was like, no.
Their athlete's foot and shit. Todo amarillo, la pata, toda lista que se las moche. So how long did this business last?
So it lasted like a few years.
Okay.
So it started with like family, and then it moved on to friends, and I created like these business cards. I had flyers. I was charging like spa prices.
That's good.
Yeah, like I would do like $90 for 90 minutes, or I would do like $60 for 60. Like I was charging like $1 per minute. So I was like making my money, and like it just felt really good, and it's something that like I enjoy doing. I felt like it was not something that I was bored of, even though it was just something like different. I feel like it was something that I became used to, And here I am with my suitcase, walking all around, just like unraveling it in the middle of the party, setting myself up. And it really I feel like it really pushed me to do more. And so after that, I started to like clean houses. I started working for my tia, and I was cleaning her house for about a year. And I would go every single weekend. I would go to her house and I would clean, and she would give me like $200.
So after that business, you felt like it kind of put this mentality in you of like, you know what, I gotta hustle.
Definitely. I was like, okay, I definitely need a hustle. Obviously, seeing my mom work, seeing where she came from, as a single parent, working so hard, I realized that, because my mom, she started working when she was like 13 years old. She had lied about her age, and she was like working at Burger King at 13 years old. And so, so seeing her do that, I realized like, well, I need to get on my stuff, I'm 15 years old already. I need to do something and I feel like that's definitely like where I got it from. My mom definitely instilled that in me. I feel like ever since then, I just been a go-getter.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's time to hustle. It's time to start something else. What new endeavor can I find? I want to start something else. I want to start a new business.
Which I love, because you also recently came out with your own talent agency. So I feel like that mindset has followed you all throughout. Hablamos un poquito about social media and about all the positives that can come with it. But also, I feel like there's so many positives, but there's also so many negatives. And I feel like you're no stranger to the negatives, which is the hate. You're so accustomed and you're so used to getting all these hate comments here and there. Do they ever get to you?
We're human, so of course, like, comments are gonna get to us. I feel like from time to time, I do come across comments where I'm like, if only you knew, if only you allowed me the chance to show you who I am. But sometimes I'll go through them and I'm like, okay, this hate comment does not define me. It
Yeah.
doesn't define who I am. It doesn't define my worth. I try to look. One thing that I do and one thing that I've learned throughout my life is like cognitive therapy, and that's when you change a negative thought into a positive.
Positive, yeah.
So anything negative someone is saying about you, you reframe that into a positive thought, and you try to see it and put yourself in their shoes, and just understand that these are like misperceptions that people have of
Yeah.
you. So anytime I do see a hate comment, of course, like there are times where I'm like, really, like, why did you have to say that? Like, you know, it was already something that I was thinking about, or it's something maybe I was already a little insecure about. And sometimes I do see them and I just take time and I reflect. I try not to act out in anger. I
Yeah.
try not to get defensive. I try not to reply or to give in. Maybe they just don't know me for me yet. Maybe they're just viewing me through a distorted lens,
Yeah.
or they're painting a certain canvas of me, of a perception that they built over a rumor or over he said, she said, or something that they've seen on the internet. So for me, I feel like I've created like that balance.
Yeah. I think you have to when you start doing social media. I feel like you kind of it's like you said, we're only human, and of course if someone is saying something about you, whether it's true or not, te va a calar, porque imagínense, amigas, que tengan miles de personas a ustedes diciéndoles que son una cosa cuando saben que son lo otro. I do feel like, you know, llega un momento where you're like, you know what, like F everyone. Like, even if people are telling me I'm this horrible human being, I know what I am, I know what I've gone through, y eso es todo lo que importa. Hablando de los comentarios, quiero platicar de un tema, de algo que te pasó en febrero de este año. You were hospitalized for a whole week. Cuéntanos un poquito de eso. What led to your hospitalization, and how was spending a whole week in the hospital?
I was hospitalized back in February of this year, and I feel like there was just like, I feel like there was a misperception of me on the internet, and there was miscommunication between me and like another creator. For me personally, I don't feel like social media is real life.
Yeah.
I feel like there's things that go on, and there's on social media and things that go on behind the scenes. To get to know a person, you have to get to know them in person and
Yeah.
really feel them. But I feel like me and this person, we had a miscommunication on the internet. It was something that I feel like was misperceived. I regret the situation that happened, because of course I feel like it put me in a situation where I went defense mode, and I felt like I had to like defend myself because I knew what was being said about me was not true. But I feel like that only self-sabotaged me, and it really created a hate train where people were attacking me, against me, rather than supporting me. So when I came out in defense to these allegations and to this situation that was going on the internet, I just felt so unheard and so attacked by thousands of people on the internet. And mind you, this is not something that I'm used to. I'm so used to cultivating a community of positivity. I'm so used to like trying to help other people and make other people feel heard and seen. And when I see all the hate pouring down onto me, to me, like watching all of that happen was something new to me.
Yeah.
I've never seen the amount of hate that I was receiving at that given moment. I'm talking like thousands. Like there was like, I don't know how many people, 30,000 maybe people that were watching the live, all chismosos trying to figure out, oh, what does he have to say? What is his response? And looking back at those videos, I do regret the way that I delivered my message. I feel like it didn't need to be done on social media. We could have corrected it privately. I feel like things didn't need to be said the way they were, but it happened.
Was it like
And
a big like scandal online that was going on at the time?
yes, it was kind of like a big scandal. It wasn't like that big. I don't think it needed to be a big deal, but it was just like a miscommunication between me and Wendy. And we're friends now, by the way. There's no beef, there's no tension. If you're watching this, you know I love you. We're friends. You know, we're on
You're
good
able
terms
to
now.
grow from it, yeah.
Exactly. We're able to grow from it. We were able to, I feel like, communicate and squash that. And I just feel like it was something that in that moment, I feel like in that moment, we just didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
In that moment, it was just a misperception, you know, it was just that miscommunication. And I feel like things could have been communicated differently, especially on my end. I feel like I do take a lot of accountability in the way that I reacted in the things that I said. But I feel like when you're like in defense mode, you just want people to hear you. You want to be seen. You want people to know that you're not the person that they think you are. So one thing that people were calling me was like, people kept calling me like obsessed. People kept calling me soft, calling me delusional, calling me weird, calling me all types of
Was
names.
this the whole dating thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say not dating,
Not
but more
dating,
so
but it was like
talking or
talking
like
stuff like that.
yeah.
Okay. I remember
It was just
exactly.
like talking or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe on my part, obviously, I love very differently. I feel like I have a different type of love. I don't feel like, you know, I feel like we just love. I feel like we just love very differently, and the way that I love is just very, very strong. So I understand, like, I do get a little emotionally attached. You know, I get a little more emotionally attached than the average person, you know? But that's also because of the way that I grew up, and that's just who shapes me. But I feel like for certain people, that could be, like, too much. It can be very overbearing. And I felt like in that moment, like, I was just loving the way that I knew how to love. And I feel like that was something that was not seen, and it was taken as obsession and stalkerish. It was taken for something negative. And they would see how I would text her constantly. And I'm the type of person where I put all my pride aside. If you don't respond to me and I want to text you, I'm going to text you. I don't care how many times I need to text you, because if I need to get something off of my chest and I need to let you know, I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to vocalize myself, you know? I'm never like, oh, well, you haven't texted me back in 5 days. I'm not going to text you till you text me first, you know? If I feel a way, I'm going to let you know. And so that's kind of what it was. There was a lot of messages where I was like texting and, you know, I wasn't necessarily getting the response, but I was getting like that reassurance that, hey, look, I see your messages. I'm just not good at replying. Like, I'm like, okay, we all go through those moments, you know? So the way that it happened was we met through like lives, right? We were going live with each other. I remember we went live and we were like playing like this one game on the live where I don't know what the game is called, but you had to like go around and grab a specific item in your house, like
scavenger hunt.
Exactly. Okay. We were playing this game and it was scavenger hunt, and like everyone had to go grab an item in a certain amount of time. So that's how we like really met, and then social media started to like ship us together and put us together. And you know how it goes with the internet. Internet always trying to ship people. They're always trying to put people together. I feel like I still deal with it now. People are always shipping me and putting me with my friends, and even the friends that I have now, you know, like I have people shipping me with like my closest friends. I have people shipping me like with every girl that they see me go live with. So it was just one of those situations where I was being shipped with her, and maybe I got a little too carried away with it. And I was like, okay, maybe this feels a little nice. I got very vulnerable with her, and she like heard me out. I felt very like supported. I felt seen. Like she made me feel seen. She made me feel comfortable. I felt like we had a good friendship. And that's something that I do miss. And I feel like that's why I feel like I wish I could change things, because I feel like on my part, maybe I seen things a way that, you know, she didn't, and I was moving on too fast, and maybe we should have just kept it the way that it was as friends. Because when I met her as a friend, when we met for the first time, I felt like, well, why couldn't it just be like this from the beginning?
Like for friendship.
Exactly. So with all the hate and everything that I was getting, I remember I was laying down in my bed and I was just scrolling through TikTok. I was looking at my For You page that same night, and I kept seeing all of these clips. And one thing I hate seeing is like, I hate seeing myself talking. I hate watching videos of myself. I don't like seeing clips of myself. I'm like, ooh. Imagine that, but all the clips that you're seeing are negative clips about yourself. And then you go to the comments, and all the top like comments are people calling you all types of names and making fun of you and calling you soft and calling you all of these things that you used to be called as a child. And so I feel like in that moment, I felt like even though I tried to express myself, even though I tried to defend myself, I feel like it really created like a bigger situation, and it made people think I was like crazy-er because of how much I was trying to defend myself. And so seeing that really led me to spiral. And I just felt so alone in that moment. I felt so unheard. I felt like, wow, like the internet, no one believes me. Not even my own like family or close friends have believed me in past situations. And it really reminded me of those situations. It reminded me of the traumas that I went through, where I was trying to, I was trying to explain myself to someone and they didn't believe me. And in that moment, I was like, I'm talking to the world. I'm talking to 30,000 people right now, and no one believes me. No one sees me. I felt just so belittled as a person that I was just like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I cannot do this. I felt very I just felt I felt very alone.
Yeah.
I felt very hated. I felt like nobody liked me. I didn't know how I could even come back to this. I didn't even want to be on my phone. So I remember I was telling my friend, I was just venting to her and I was letting her know, I was like, hey, like, I don't feel okay right now. I was like, as much as I hate to say this, I don't feel okay right now. I don't want to put all the blame on that specific situation because I was not in the best mindset already seeing those and going into it. I wasn't in the best mindset. And I think that has to do with why I reacted to the way that I did, so defensive. I just feel like I was just doing what I felt I needed to do. I was doing what I felt my heart needed to do.
Yeah.
And that is what led me to the hospital because my mind got so clouded with negative thoughts that I no longer felt safe in my environment. I no longer felt safe. I've already had many past experiences with being in the hospital. I've had past experiences with my mental health where I've been admitted to the emergency room. 7 years old was actually the first time I went to the emergency room. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks at 7 years old. And that was the first time that I actually like attempted to take my life. And ever since then, I've been in and out of the hospitals.
Yeah.
And so I knew in that moment, like, okay, if I don't take initiative now and tell a friend that, hey, you know what, I'm not mentally okay, then I'm not, you know, like, who knows what could happen to me. When you get in that mindset, it's so hard because you have like so many negative thoughts like on one side of your brain and it starts outweighing all of the positive. And you just feel so like, you feel so belittled. You just don't feel like, you don't feel like you have a sense of belonging anymore. And so every time like I would check my DMs and everything was just hate, hate, hate. Everyone was hating me and I was like, wow, like
people do fucking
people
hate
really
me.
do hate me.
Did your friend like call the police or the hospital, or how did you get admitted?
So my friend ended up taking that initiative, which I'm so thankful for because I don't know what I would do without her doing that. She took the initiative. She called the hospital and she actually came to pick me up because they were going to send the ambulance. But I've been in so many ambulances that my like medical debt is like, she knew better to not get the ambulance, you know? So she came, she picked me up, she took me to the hospital. They evaluated me and everything. And I was there for like about a week. And yeah, while I was there, I felt like I needed that. I needed to be away. I felt like I was not okay at home. I didn't feel okay. I felt like given like my past experiences and things that I've done to myself, I feel like it was something that I needed to like decompress. I needed like a little breather, a little break to kind of snap back into reality and realize like, hey, look, this is the internet. Like snap out of it. It's okay. Take a deep breath, you know? I hated myself so much. I felt like I just felt so like unheard. And so yeah, I was in the hospital and I was there. And then I remember like I was calling my friends from the hospital phone, like when it first happened. And like, I was like remembering whose number I could call. Cause I'm like, when you're in those situations, like they give you a certain amount of time to talk on the phone. So they're like, you have 5 minutes of phone time at this time, and then you got to give up the phone. So I remember like, you know, a few numbers, and then I called them. And then someone who actually like called me while I was in the hospital was Meche. And so I think she's the only one like that
checked up on you.
That checked up at me. Aside from my best friend, I have a best friend, like a
hometown best friend.
Hometown, exactly.
Childhood.
I have like a hometown best friend, and then like I have like my close friends from like work. It's like social media and stuff is work. So I have like close friends from social media and stuff, but it was only like certain certain close friends. But I remember like saving one of my friend's number, and I called her, and I was like, hey, like, it just felt so awkward. I felt like I was in jail. I was like, you know, like, what am I doing here?
Because they're like keeping up and watching everything you're doing, right? To make sure you're not harming yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, when you get admitted to a place like that, I mean, I'm not new to it by all means, but when you go in there, they take your shoelaces off. Obviously you can't have like shoes in general, but they take your shoelaces off so you don't have them with you. They take your shoes, they take your string off from your hoodies. They take
like they think of everything.
They think of everything. Like they'll cut the strings on your pants. Like if you have anything, they cut everything. They have like cages on the windows. They really make you feel like
you're in jail.
Like you're in jail. Yeah. Like I'm like, okay.
And then
like,
you're going through a whole mental battle and you're like, oh my fucking God, where am I?
Yes. So when I was there, I felt so mentally insane because, well, in my head, I'm like, okay, at that time, well, in the beginning of this year, I was 21. So I'm like, okay, I'm 21 years old now. Like, why am I still going through this?
Yeah.
You know, it's already been over like 15 years of going through this. Like, how did I allow myself to get to this point again? Because the last time I was hospitalized prior to that was when I was 18 years old. And so that was also something very detrimental to me as well, because that was more like, I feel like life-threatening.
Yeah.
I feel like that was something that I actually attempted. I actually did harm to myself. And this situation was more so of like,
you were aware of where it can take you.
Exactly. Yeah. I was very aware because I knew the mental state that I was in and I knew what it could lead to. And so being there, it definitely did feel a little awkward. I felt crazy. I felt insane. I felt like, damn, like, you know, like, why am I in this situation again? How could I even tell the internet? And I haven't even told, like, I haven't spoken up about it. I haven't told anybody about this recent situation because I don't want people to like see me or deem me as crazy or weird, because they already did, you know, when I try to talk about myself, and people were already calling me all types of names. So I come out and I tell people like, oh, I was hospitalized, blah, blah, blah. I feel like
they were going to think you were doing it for attention or whatever the case is. I feel like social media and just the internet is so toxic that I feel like sometimes we really do have to remove ourselves from those social spaces. You know, hablando de esto que te pasó, how do you feel like nowadays, how do you protect your mental peace when navigating these online spaces?
The way that I protect myself and like my peace is by surrounding myself around people that I feel comfortable around, surrounding myself around people that I feel like a sense of community with, people that make me feel belonged. And it takes a certain type of person to make me feel like that. So I definitely do safeguard myself. I safeguard my peace and my energy. And I try not to make myself available to so many people, because I realize with making yourself available to so many people comes with vulnerability. It comes with a lot of people trying to drain you of your energy, trying to bring you down. And I just like to surround myself around people that I know are going to make me feel whole, that are going to uplift me, that I feel comfortable around, that I know that I can be myself around. And so that's one thing that I do try to try to protect myself so that I don't end up in these situations. And I've also learned to communicate more and be more vocal and be more transparent about things that I'm dealing with and things that I'm going through, and just finding like that person, that safeguarded person that I know is going to hear me, that I know is going to listen to me. And it just feels good knowing like the people that I have right now in my circle. I feel that if I were to ever end up in a situation like that ever again, I feel like I have the people now that I know are gonna back me up, in which they were. Like when that whole situation happened, it made me so happy getting out of the hospital and seeing how many people were really defending my name, my close friends. They were like defending me. They were saying all this, and I was like, oh my God, like that really made me feel love. And it made me feel like, well, I wish I would have told them before I ended up in that mental state, because they had no idea. That's definitely like one thing that I try to do, is just surround myself around people that make me feel whole, that make me feel at home. And that's the way that I protect myself.
Yo quiero darte este momento para aclarar any other polémicas, chismes, or anything that you've ever heard about yourself and you're like, what the hell, ¿de dónde han sacado tanta pinche pendejada? Cuéntanos.
Well, where do we start? I feel like there's been so many like rumors. There's so many like, I feel like misperceptions on the internet. People always have this and this, and it's actually funny. Every time I see somebody like come up with their own storyline and like they like stick with it and they run with it, it's like, if only you knew. There was this one time back in 2021, I was pronounced dead on the internet.
Like legit dead? Like someone was like, he's dead?
Like legit, the article, you know what the Shade Room is?
Uh-huh.
The Shade Room and the TikTok Room posted about my status. They said I was critical condition in the hospital, and then later on they posted that I passed away. And so it had people creating edits of me, creating sad audios. They did that one audio, the Yo te extraña, that one. That one, yeah. They did that one song. They put the one Beyonce song, Heaven.
The
Is it
Heaven,
Heaven?
uh-huh.
Yeah, wait. Heaven couldn't wait for you. Yeah.
Wait, but were you actually going through, or you
So
were
I was in the
chilling?
hospital.
Okay,
No,
okay,
I was in the
okay.
hospital for weeks at this time. Me and these hospital visits, I stay in the hospital. But I was in the hospital for a while. This was the time when I was 18.
Okay,
This was
that
like,
one time you were
this was the
mentioning?
last time that I was actually
Okay.
there. I was I was in the hospital. I was going through it. I was in a really, really bad mental state, and it got all over the internet. People were posting articles about me, and that's how I met like a lot of like the people that I know now too, because a lot of people were like messaging me that I didn't even know before, and like they were like reaching out for support. They're like, "Oh, I seen this video about you. I saw this. I hope it's not true. I hope the rumors weren't true." When I came back after like a month, everyone in my comments were like, "OMG, RIP Lucas. OMG, I hope like you rest in peace." And I just seen
Like
these
they thought it was
comments.
like an old video that you were posting that they were commenting on, or what?
No, it was in my old videos because I had not posted at all.
Oh, I get it. So when
So-
you came back, all those
And I looked at my
notifications-
comments,
okay,
all of
okay.
those notifications. So every notification that I would see was like, "Oh, rest in peace, Lucas." I was getting mentioned in videos of people posting like sad edits about me, saying like, "Oh, he passed away, guys. This is why mental health is important," in which it is very important,
Yeah.
you know? But it was just like, to me, it almost made me feel like, did I pass away?
Yeah.
Like, feel like, am I the Walking Dead right now?
like,
Like, hold on, yeah.
Touching yourself,
No,
you're like,
literally.
wait, let me make sure. Boom.
Exactly. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, the way that they were like explaining everything, it made me feel like for a second, like, whoa, like, damn.
So
like-
when you went back online, like to the people, you had already passed away, you were already buried, type of shit.
yeah. So I
How
was
did that
already
make you feel?
I was already gone. It made me feel very like uncomfortable. It made me feel really like it was definitely like a uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
Because I remember my first time back at the gym, these two girls had came up to me and they were like, "Oh, aren't you the dude that died?" And I was like, "What? What do
You're
you
like,
mean?"
no, I'm alive.
Literally. And I told this story time before, like a while ago. I remember like they came up to me and they were like, "Oh, aren't you the dude that died? Oh, we thought you died, whatever." And they pulled up my picture and they were like, "Oh, is this you?" And it was the exact article of the Shade Room that posted it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen not just with like, obviously you mentioned this, but I've seen it so much with other creators, and I feel like it's so insensitive.
Yeah.
Not just to the person they're posting about, but also to like the family members. Did you have family see that and reach out and be like, "Hey, what the hell's happening? Que se murió Lucas. ¿En dónde está Lucas? ¿Está bien?" Did you have like family reach out?
Yes, definitely. I had like my cousins and then I had like my best friend. Not so much more like my older family because they're not on social media like that. But I did have like some cousins that were like commenting back and they were reaching out to like my friends that were reposting the stuff. Because I did have like influencer friends that were kind of like, they
believed
persuaded.
it.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
persuaded. They were led to believe that it was real. I had, this friend at the time that was posting like sad content about me, and she was like, "Oh my God, he was such a good friend. I miss him. I wish he was still here." And she was like showing all of our messages and combos or whatever. And it's very ironic though, because like the messages and stuff she was showing where she was like, "Oh, like he was such a good friend. He was a best friend." Like you could see that I was the one always respond. I was the one always texting, and she didn't respond. And the day before I was actually hospitalized, I had texted her. So she kind of posted that message. She kind of like,
Made it seem like, I was the last person that talked to him.
Yes. So she made it seem like I was the last person. And I think because she was a bigger creator too, I feel like that also made other people believe like, okay, something is really up with him. This is real. Because when she posted it, they knew that we were really close. So the moment she started posting all this content about me, about, she posted this one like TikTok and it was like, "Oh, I hate all men, but..." and it was like, "Oh, when he loves me," and it was me, yeah, and it was pictures of me, and it was like a video of her crying and all this, and I was like, really? I was like, really?
Like, homegirl, you don't even reply to me.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you didn't
she's
even...
not monetizing off your death.
No, literally. I'm like, you didn't even reply to me. You didn't even say anything to me. And I'm like, you're somebody that I was like, I was always there for. And so I feel like her doing that definitely gave the internet some type of like,
let's run with it.
Yes, and some type of confirmation in a way. And so I remember them reposting like her videos and saying, "Oh my gosh, like we need to pray for him. Let's pray for a good outcome." And there was people arguing in the comments. It was so funny to see because people were like, "Oh, is he dead? Is he not? Is he old?" Like, everyone was like, "No, he's not. No, he's not. The news didn't post about it. It's only like the Shade Room and TikTok Room. It's not on CNN." Or
that's when you guys no crean todo lo que miran online, because I feel like, if I would have probably seen that, since we don't text like that, I would have been like, oh my God, R.I.P. Lucas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because things like that sometimes do look so real.
Yeah.
Hablando de eso and just the toll that, social media and just in general, you are a big, mental health advocate. What can you say to anyone watching today that struggles or has struggled with mental health?
What I can say is everything will be okay. Take your time. Don't feel pressured into being somebody that you're not. Be yourself, stay authentic, stay true to yourself, and trust your gut instinct all the time. And know that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to show emotions. And especially like as a guy as well, I feel like we're often overlooked. I feel like there's stigmas where, men can't cry or we can't have emotions. And it's okay to feel. It's okay. If you're not in a right headspace right now, just know like everything is going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason. And I know it sounds so cliche, but I feel like I'm a prime example of that. Everything happens for a reason. Who would have known that everything that I went through, that I would be here sitting today, being able to storytell and to share my experiences with other people. And I feel like that's like the beauty of it, that there is light at the end of that tunnel, that you are put in these situations for a reason, that God really does give his strongest battles to his toughest shoulders. Yeah. And I feel like you have a purpose. You have a sense of purpose, whether you believe it or not. Everyone does. Even if you don't know what it is, I feel like you just need to sit with yourself, reflect with yourself, and just take it easy on yourself. Give yourself that pat on your back. Be your own best friend at times when other people aren't there for you. You have to be your number one support system. Be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself, and just be kind to other people as well, because you never know what other people are going through.
And just know that there's a life beyond the trauma. There's a life beyond everything that you're currently going through that kind of seems like you'll never be able to like surpass the situation you're in. Sepan, amigas, that everything does get better. Time does heal. And just work on yourself, show up for yourself and just continue, telling yourself how great of a person you are despite everything you've gone through. So ya para terminar esta entrevista el día de hoy, I want to say I've loved this interview so much. Yo sé que ahí en casita también les encantó. ¿En dónde te miras tú en los próximos 5 años, whether that is career-wise or personal?
In 5 years, I see myself definitely as a businessman. Yeah. I see myself with 5 businesses. I see myself doing real estate. It's something that my mom does, so it's something I want to like carry on, because she's I don't know. I feel very like inspired, by my mom and my family and the way that I grew up. So I see myself, having multiple businesses. I see myself pursuing my talent agency, growing, and like building a family with whoever. I don't know, whoever I find. I hope in the next 5 years that I could find somebody to build a family with and to have kids, because I do see myself with the family and kids within the next 5 years. And I see myself managing my businesses, working from home, being able to provide for my family, and just being able to give back to the world.
And living your dream. Y yo sé que cada una de esas metas las vas a lograr if you continue, working your ass off and showing off for yourself. I do want to take this moment before we finish today's episode to really say that I really do appreciate you sitting down here with me and opening up about a lot of things that maybe a lot of people are very scared to ever open up. And the fact that you're sitting here not just with me, but knowing that this is gonna be, broadcasted to so many people at home really shows, your courage. And I hope you guys watching at home can really take this and really see a different side of Lucas. And, I'm really happy that you were here. En verdad que sí te lo aprecio mucho que estuvieras aquí y abriste in the way that you did with us.
Yes, and I'm very grateful for you giving me this opportunity. I feel like there's nobody else that I would have wanted to do it with. So I appreciate you for listening to me, for you guys listening to me. And I hope that anybody watching on the other side of the screen, I hope you know that you are loved, you are valued, and that if you're ever going through anything, that it's okay to speak up, and it's okay to not be okay, but people do love you.
And again, I appreciate the fact that you trusted me with your story, with your time. Y en verdad, amigas, no se quieren, vayan y sigan a Lucas on all his social medias, which I'll leave down below as well as on the screen. Y no se les olvide seguirme a mí on all of mine so you guys won't miss any future episodes. And with that being said, thank you once again.
Thank you.
And thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys!